Hello guys, what is up? It is your boy Prince of What Ifs, and I am here with the full story of what if Asta was a player. Now, I'm gonna warn y'all, my audio is gonna switch a lot. These are old videos. I use different software sometimes, so my voice came out differently. It's not gonna bother your experience too much. Just be aware of how weird the switches are gonna be. Like in a snap, I'm gonna sound completely different, maybe even weird. But I hope that won't stop you from enjoying this. Like I said in the community post, this is not a different story. This is the same. I just wanted to let you guys, experience what my old viewers experience, my old stuff. This is like me and my old writing. It doesn't really differ that much from my current one, but it is slightly different, and you won't notice it. And just have fun. Bring out your popcorn. This is a long, long ass video. Feel free to take breaks. Mark down where you are down in the comments. I don't mind. That doesn't bother me. And just enjoy the video, man. Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of my future videos, and I will get that special to you soon, so don't worry. This doesn't count as a special, but you can take it as that if you want. The real one's on the way, and I'm gone. So, we're gonna start the story off by talking about dungeons and magic. Magic was a natural occurrence, but dungeons came to the world in a weird fashion. Portals would just pop up made of magic, or, dungeons would be formed in a certain landscape. Either way, these dungeons were full of dangerous monsters and beasts. And since the nobility didn't really want to waste their magic and magic knights, actually, no. Since they didn't want to waste magic, magic knights always took care of this until adventurers came into play. They would take care of the dungeons and monsters that popped out of them, and if an adventurer reached the rank of S, they may be considered for a noble title, but most adventurers never really reach that, so it almost never happens. From time to time, nobles themselves actually would become adventurers, and due to having more magic than commoners, this means that not only do they defeat monsters faster and get people safe, they also receive medals from the king and praise from the current wizard king, Julius Noverchrono. Now, as for Asta, his life will be a little bit more normal. He has a mother and a father, but his mother is very weak and actually inhabits a curse, not that he was ever told about it. This curse actually sapped magic out of people who came close to her, and this was the reason why Asta was born magicless. But his parents gave him like a lot of love, so that's good. His mother was named Lichita, and his father was named Hugh. Hugh was a C-rank adventurer and fended off monsters and fended for the family and provided for it. He was pretty strong. And that's where Asta learned like sword fighting from him, and also learned hand-to-hand combat. And Asta is still a very strong kid despite being so weak looking to adults. He's like really strong. Asta lived near an orphanage and was acquainted with all the kids there, and he became best friends with Yuno, a kid with wind magic. Asta was older than him about a year and was quite good at swordsmanship, like I said. And when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, again, like, he ain't losing to anyone below his age if they like don't have any experience. So yeah. Now one day when Yuno was 6, he was being hassled by a man who had stolen his pendant, and it was very important to him because that was what he was brought with to the orphanage. That's what he had. The only remain of what he's guessing is his family. And Yuno would fight for it, but the man would throw him to the ground as he was about to hit him with magic. Not on my watch, yells Asta, as he then comes out of nowhere, punching and sending the man flying. As the man got up, he got a good look at Asta and recognized who his father was, and so he threw the pendant at him and ran away. Asta would then run over helping Yuno as he then handed his pendant back. "Thanks, Asta," says Yuno. "How are you always jumping into trouble like that? You don't have magic." Asta would then smile, say, "My dad says even without magic I'm super strong," and Yuno would say, "I really wish I had as much confidence as you do." Asta would then tap Yuno on the shoulder saying, "Come on, you have amazing wind magic and you can actually use it. You'll get stronger and more confident." Yuno would then be cheered up as the two boys make a promise to grow strong and stay strong no matter what may come their way. However, when Asta turned 10, his father went missing as the adventurer guild of the Clover Kingdom informed him of this. There was a closer adventurer sitting next to them. Asta and his mother were devastated, but knowing they couldn't last long without a provider, Asta actually took up 2 jobs, farming and adventuring. He helped the orphanage farm, and in turn they would give him some vegetables and, leftovers. As for adventuring, he could only take up E rank gates because the monsters and other dungeons were too powerful for him. Luckily, his dad had many supplies Asta could use, but it still did not matter as there was a clear gap between him and the monsters. Asta would go along with a higher ranked adventurer, some of them assholes, some of them nice, but he endured it all to keep his mother happy, because her being healthy wasn't exactly an option, so, Pretty soon, his friend would actually become an adventurer as well, and a genius adventurer that, as he would rise to C rank in just 2 months, which was pretty fast, and he kept fighting monsters, and his magic just kept getting stronger, as did his fighting skills. So he's not just a magic user, he's a combatant, but Asta still beats him in that category. However, he was scorned sometimes as well, just like Asta, because he was a commoner. We cut to Asta now in the dungeon, as he cuts a goblin in half and then sweep kicks one in front of him, stabbing it in the chest. You then come across a hobgoblin, which was a muscular, bigger creature, but Asta had a lot of muscle himself, so as the creature rushed at him with incredible speed, he dodged his bite at his shoulder just barely, as he then stabbed it in the back of its neck, making it scream. He would then desperately do this like a couple more times, and then he would then go after a few more monsters, and when he's done, the monsters and their blood on Asta would evaporate. Asta would then fall to the ground exhausted as he just looks around him, and there are shiny little blue orbs on the floor. I should be at home, celebrating my 14th birthday with my mom and dad. Damn it. Well, let's go back to the guild. He then puts the ores in the satchel and then leaves the E-rank dungeon. Now as Asta gets out of the dungeon, he's in an open field and it's night. He starts running back to the Clover City near, and coming up on the adventurer building, he enters it only to be stared at by a bunch of buff men and magicians. Some say hi, being friendly, and some just scoff or laugh at him. When he goes up to the counter, he meets the receptionist of the guild named Sebas, an old man who was actually a veteran adventurer of rank B. "Hello, Asta. How much did you get today?" asked Sebas. "Oh, just the usual," says Asta. "By the way, did Yuno come by?" Sebas would then say yes, actually. He's already done for the day. Seems like he's ready to move up another rank. "Again, huh?" says Asta. Sebas would then take Asta's ores and give him some money, as he then encourages him, saying that things will get better, and Asta takes these words to heart, and he heads home. When he enters, he goes to his mom's bedroom and kneels down, holding her hand. Seems like she was a bit too weak and was sleeping today. "I will fix this, just give me a bit more time," thinks Asta. He would then get up and cook dinner for himself and his mom, and he woke her up and helped her eat. Then she went to sleep as Asta just headed out for the night. Since the disappearance of his father, he's been searching for him, going to places that his father has passed by before, and today he was walking around and he came close to a specific spot. It was a dangerous forest filled with animals infected by dungeon energy, and this made them rage out, and it was really dangerous to get near them. I have to do this. I can handle this. It's just a few bears. My dad taught me how to handle that. I can beat those easily. He would then take out his short sword, putting it in front of himself as he stays on guard, trying to not make a sound when he stepped forward. If there was even a chance his dad was caught here somehow, he wanted to find out. It's better than not knowing what happened to him. However, as he was walking around, he fell and had this overwhelming feeling of desperation being forced onto him. He would then soon open his eyes, finding himself in a dark castle. Well, a mix between a castle and a dungeon. Where am I? Did I just discover some new type of dungeon? I hope it's low rank or I'm dead. After he gets up, torches light up the area as he sees a huge statue in front of himself, and there's a bunch of metal knight effigies surrounding him. The ground was cracked and looked old and ancient. Instantly, this room then disappears as he looks to see in front of him what looks like his father dying at the hands of some monster. It was a terrifying thing to watch, but he couldn't move and had to watch it happen. Wondering why this was happening, he would be crying, begging to be out of this place, but he did not lose his mind, even though he was being driven insane. This scene actually goes on for hours, to the point where Asta can't count how long he's been here, watching his dad fight this beast for his life. But then it finally ended. And then he saw another tragedy, as he saw his mom laying in her bed, and he still couldn't move. He kept hearing her thoughts and anguish that she wished to no longer be part of this world, but she couldn't afford to leave her son behind. All these thoughts, not only could Asta hear them, but he could feel her sadness, her overwhelming anger at herself. And the same was the same for his father. And this will go on for God knows how long. And he found himself in the same room again, the cracked room, just scared as he had his blades out, looking around, scared as his eyes had dark circles under them and his eyes were completely red. Who is this? Who's doing this to me? Why? Haven't I suffered enough? His senses would then kick in as he narrowly dodges a blade strike from one of the effigies that had come to life, and trying to survive, he goes on and tries to kick it, but it doesn't work as his leg is actually in pain when he attacks. Another knight then comes up, and Asta has no choice but to dodge and stay on the offensive. Maybe if I keep them away, I can get out of here eventually. However, he was wrong about this, as this would go on for so long that he no longer knew how long he was there for. He was dodging and punching and cutting, as pretty soon his blade actually broke and his leg got cut off. The pain was unbearable and he was crawling away from the knights, who then for some reason started walking slowly towards him, even though they could kill him right there. Then he realized it. These knights were having fun with this, belittling and chasing around a bug, which was him. But he couldn't accept this. He would crawl as much as he could, getting close to what looks like an altar in the middle of the room. He then tried to stand up using the altar, even though he only had one leg, and he ready for battle, putting his hands forward, not wanting to give up. I have a mother at home. She's all alone, and I'm the only thing she has left. I'm the only one she has left. There's no way. This is where my story ends. He would then feel this overwhelming presence as he looked up to see the smiling statue with the most maniacal look and blue glowing eyes. At this moment, he would then scream at the top of his lungs as he's then stabbed in the chest by a knight, and using all of his strength, he breaks the sword while also breaking his arm in the process, trying to rip it out. He would not stop screaming at the top of his lungs, fearing that if he stopped, he may lose consciousness and die. But then his eyes would feel heavy as he then only sees darkness. But then something pops up. You have met the qualifications. You have completed the quest, Fight of the Brave. Would you like to become a player? Asta was just barely hanging on and could barely see the screen. However, he then saw it ask if he wanted to live. Say yes to become a player, or you will die in 5, 4, 3, 2. Yes, I'll become a player. Asta would then lose consciousness and fade to black. He would then open his eyes as he yells, just finds himself in the hospital room. He thought he died and he was hallucinating at the end, but at this point, honestly, he didn't know what to believe. But first off, he notices his leg is back and he feels completely healthy, but something has changed, and in front of him he saw a weird screen. As he would look and check out the screen, a healing mage would then appear, telling him that he was good to go. Asta would then ask, sir, can you not see this? See what? Asked the mage. Asta was then confused and so disoriented that he just decided to forget about this. So the first thing he did was get out of bed and put on his, all his clothes, and he thanks the mage, and he also asked how long he's been out for. The mage would tell him about 3 days, and he then asked where they found him. They say they found him near some orphanage passed out, and Asta would ask a bunch of other things, and honestly, the answers make no sense, but he's just happy to be alive, and that's all that matters. So he steps out of the hospital to see Yuno, who was actually waiting for him, walking back and forth, because Yuno actually was the one who found him. Asta, what happened to you? Asked Yuno. Asta would then say, it's fine, alright, I'm good. He then thinks, I'm guessing he can't see this either. He and Yuno would then go back to their homes, as Asta had to go home and check on his mom quickly. She was okay and she was just sleeping, but she also had tears running down her eyes. It's like a mother instinct. She thought that Asta wasn't coming back, but he did. So he stayed until he saw the screen pop up. He just stayed by his mom's side, and he saw the screen pop up showing him his stats. Strength 5, Agility 6, Sense 10, Vitality 5, Intelligence 0, HP 1000, MP 0, Job none, Name Asta, Level 1, Fatigue 0. Asta would then find this interesting, as it seems like his attributes seem to be numbered somehow, and then a quest would pop up on another screen at his side. This quest would then ask that he do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 10-kilometer run, 100 curls, and 100 squats. This was weird for him, but honestly, he didn't mind training because it was the only thing that kept him going in this world. So he went out and did some of the muscle exercises, which took him about 2 hours, and then he did the 10-kilometer run, and it took him about 2 hours as well. When he was done, he was actually pretty good because this type of training was nothing to him. This is Asta we're talking about. This nigga does one-handed push-ups with ease. So yeah. But Asta only did this because he wanted to find out what would happen if he actually did the training. The quest screen would then change, saying that he had completed it just in time, and he received 3 things: 5 stat points, and a green key to a dungeon, and a status recovery spell. Asta would then accept the 5-point stats, and he adds them all to intelligence because, well, he's not a really dumb person, but he thinks that intelligence is a very good thing. He's been taught by his dad that being a good strategist is better than just having more strength, and Asta had plenty of it. So as he added 5 stat points to intelligence, he actually got a rise in MP, and he felt suddenly empowered, and he was surrounded by a bright yellow light. Is this magic? I have magic? How does this even work? Something would then come to mind as Asta wonders if he can communicate with the system. Up to this point, it's been summoning up, just been coming up in his face, like a sort of it was responding to his instinct. So he asked the system some questions, like why his leg grew back, why adding points to intelligence grew his MP, all of that, and why did the system choose him, and what is the system for? And the system answered everything except what the system is actually for, as it only vaguely says that it's here to make Asta strong, which isn't exactly good because that sounds really suspicious. But he has magic now, so he's pretty freaking excited. So just by doing a few exercises, he's gained a ton of magic. Well, not a ton, but like magic at all. I mean, he was magicless, so this is pretty amazing. He would then marvel at the system, and then something new would pop up, which would be his inventory, and he reached into it, pulling out his broken short sword, and he asked the system about this as well. When the system explains it, Asta is amazed, and he goes home and puts in all the stuff that he has, like extra weapons, low-level recovery potions. Yes, those exist here, just, you know, they're more mainstream in this world, and they actually stay in there, and he can actually pull things out. Now, concerning the key that he received, it says that it's only meant to open a dungeon in a certain place. So Asta quickly heads to where the system tells him to be, and using the key, he opens a portal. This portal will be in the middle of nowhere, and as Asta enters, he's walking down steps. This is at least a D-rank dungeon. Now that I have magic, I can actually feel this energy. It's overwhelming. How do people do this every day? I can't stop here. I can't. Now, heading downstairs, he takes out a sword from his inventory, and soon he finds a steel fang Rykon, which is just a red wolf with a metallic mouth, but they're really strong. This monster would then attack him, but Asta manages to dodge, which surprised him because he definitely felt like this beast was stronger than him. He then manages to cut the monster in half, leveling up as the system tells him so. So his stats get increased a bit, and when he sees this, he gets happy. But he wasn't done yet, as more wolves would come at him, and using his years of experience, Asta manages to beat all the beasts and switch between weapons so they don't break or anything. And soon, when he's done with the wolves, he sees that his stats have increased a lot, and he's gained 2 skills. He's gained the skill Sprint and Muscularity. He would then take a moment to understand how much stronger he gets every time he beats those wolves, and he finds out he gains 1 stat point for every stat when he levels up, just like when Jin does. So right now he has 20 strength, 21 agility, sense is 25, vitality is 10, intelligence is 11, HP is 1000, and his MP is 22. His job is still none, and his level is 5, and his fatigue is 3. Now, while taking a break, he also gets introduced to the store, and even though the monsters don't drop ores, their carcasses or teeth and stuff like that can be sold in the store, even though he can't buy anything yet. And actually, he gets the same currency in this world. Like, the store has the same currency as, well, anyone in this world uses. So he sells a fang from one of the wolves and gets 20 yules, which is pretty good because Asta at a minimum needs at least 1,000 yules to survive with his mom. But that's hard to earn. But with this system, things might get better, you know? So from here on out, things would go like in Soul Leveling. Asta meets more wolves, and he earns the title Wolf Slayer. And as he destroys them, he gets stronger and stronger. And now that he has the title, he can apply it to his stats. And by the time the wolves stop coming, and Asta earns 34 fangs, 2 daggers, and traveler clothes that he puts in his inventory. This legitimately is a dream of any adventurer to have a spatial space to hold their stuff. And now Asta had one all to himself. Asta then gets more and more levels and then comes out of the dungeon a new man, a stronger man. By this point, he realized how he could gauge the strength of the monsters based on the color of their name, and he beat all different types, and he beat the Rasaka snake, or Rasaka snake, however you want to say it. And as he exits the dungeon, he would look at his clothes, noticing that they were torn. Just how long was I in there for? He would then check out his new items, which were Rasaka's Fang Dagger, and it was a C-rank weapon, which surprised Asta, and it gave him a lot of strength. It could also paralyze and make people bleed like crazy if they're cut by it, and he has an A-rank potion made from Rasaka's Venom, which will harden your skin, but weaken your muscles. Right now, this was his current stats. Strength 50, Agility 28, Sense 35, Vitality 27, Intelligence 27, HP 3030, MP 350, Job is still none, Level 20, and Fatigue 52. Alright, says Asta, I gotta go home. Just wait a bit more, Mom. I'm sure I'll get stronger and I can get the system to give me a high rank potion. So, time skip 1.5 years forward, and Asta has been getting stronger non-stop, just going to as many dungeons as possible, and with this, he increases his level all the way up to level 100. Yes, y'all know where I'm taking this shit. And he's still, like, getting stronger right now. However, instead of flaunting his power, he has it hidden, but he lets out a bit of magic with people thinking that he's a late bloomer of sorts, and they don't really give a damn though. The system then helps him hide his presence and his magic, but he cannot hide his devilish good looks as Asta turns into a completely different and completely new person. He looks as good as a noble and as tall, like legit. My man looks good, like what you see on the screen right now. Yuno would become a B rank adventurer with Asta staying at E, and Asta also had a shit ton of money by this point, like more than 1 billion yules in his freaking inventory, and he had a lot of free time, which is why he was able to level up so fast and so much. But it wasn't easy hiding his power, but he did what he had to do because he didn't want attention of nobles. Like, he really doesn't like nobles in this. So he soon found a potion for his mom, and her curse was gone, and he actually found out she had a freaking curse, and he had everything he needed. He did not care about fame, so he would do E-rank quests constantly and do all his, like, the system quests in the background. However, little did he know, someone in the Clover Kingdom was actually onto him and knew he was hiding something. So soon came the day for the Grimoire ceremony. Asta wakes up kissing his mom as he leaves while she was cooking breakfast. "Don't be late or this food is gonna get cold," yells Lichita. "I won't," says Asta, "just don't eat everything without me." Asta would then head out walking because he doesn't want to, run too fast and reveal his power. He would then go to the orphanage and knock on the door. When Sister Lily opens and sees Asta, she blushes before coming to her senses because despite his appearance, Asta is still younger than her. Yuno then comes out greeting Asta as he and the rest of the orphanage, including the father, go to the Grimoire Tower. When Yuno and Asta enter this place, Yuno gets stares not because he's a commoner, but because he's a well-known adventurer called the Tempest. But some nobles are still jealous. But Asta was looked down upon, and Yuno noticed it. However, he looked back to see that Asta was actually indifferent to what they thought. Since that one day he came to the hospital, that's when things changed, but I can't figure out what. Asta would then be thinking, I wonder if I'm finally gonna get to upgrade Egress or Tank. They're nearing higher ranks, but they just need one last push. Everyone would then gather up as the Elder of the Tower starts the ceremony, and out of the shelves, the Grimoires would just start floating down and going to their owners. Some small, some big, and there was then this green shine that filled the room, and everyone looked up to see a 4-leaf Grimoire. As they wondered who was gonna get it, the Grimoire would land in the hand of Yuno, who would then declare, "I'm gonna be the Wizard King." All the commoners would then cheer for him as the nobles think that he's being too arrogant. "Wizard King? Since when?" thinks Asta. As Yuno made his declaration though, Asta would realize that there was no Grimoire coming for him no matter how long he waited. So turning around, he started exiting the tower, and when some saw this, they started ridiculing him and laughing at him because his magic is so low that he couldn't get a Grimoire. Asta did not care though and started walking back home, and pretty soon the ceremony would end and everyone started to leave. Yuno would be cornered by 2 nobles as he was heading home alone. "Hand over the Grimoire," says one of the nobles. "Yeah, don't get cocky just because you can defeat a few monsters," says the other noble. Yuno would then raise his hand, not even using his Grimoire. Do you know what the most interesting about monsters is? When they come across someone stronger, they run or submit. Seems like those monsters have more intelligence than you two. The nobles would then get mad, only to be sent flying into the forest by Yuno's wind magic. "Weakling," says Yuno. We then zoom in to see Asta as he was passing close to the orphanage, and he senses the little battle with ease. His eyes would then shine blue as he just smiles, but then he senses ominous magic, and Yuno's magic is actually being sapped. Activating Sprint, Asta lunges forward as he just runs to save Yuno. He arrives in 5 seconds to see Yuno being chained up and held down. He lands at where the fight is happening, with both Yuno and Revchi looking at Asta confused because they did not sense him arrive. "Asta, get out of here," yells Yuno. "This guy is out for blood." Revchi would then say, "Who the hell is this kid? I can barely sense your magic. What do you want?" Yuno at this point would be trying to break out of the chains desperately, but he can't, and Asta does not answer Revchi as he only starts walking closer and closer to him. And then Revchi launches chains at him using his magic to create snake heads to be like attached to them, and they're about to like bite Asta. As Yuno yells for Asta to dodge, he then sees the chains shatter as Revchi falls down in fear. "What's going on?" thinks Yuno. He would then be released as Revchi begs for Asta to let him live, and using the skill Bloodlust, Asta was intimidating Revchi with ease, like the dude was having a freaking panic attack, and because he was way below Asta's level. And using Vital Strike, he actually shattered the chains way too fast for anyone to see. Revchi would then say, Please let me leave. I won't come back here. Here, you can take the Grimoire." Asta would then take back Yuno's Grimoire, throwing it to Yuno, who catches it, wondering what this pressure is that he's sensing from his childhood friend. "So you're gonna let me go?" Revchi would then see upside down as his head would be cut off, shocking Yuno, and Asta sees in front of him Enemy was killed. You have leveled up. Do you accept the rewards? Asta would then think accept, as he would gain 10 experience points and a status recovery. Now he had 30 remaining points to use and 2 status recovery saved up. Asta would then think, these people really need to stop emanating so much bloodlust. Oh wait, Yuno's still here. He would then turn around to see a shocked and confused Yuno. He would then ask what's happening, but Asta jumps down to the forest, running away. As Asta ran away, Yuno was gonna chase him, but the guards would show up, assuming he killed Revchi, not even giving time Yuno to explain anything. Now, as for Asta, when he got back home, his food was cold, but he ate it anyway because it was delicious, and he had like one of the mages heated up for him. By the way, his mom knows about the shadow soldiers and everything. She knows everything, and she really likes them because they have a lot of personality. They're really nice and they help out. So he spends the entire day training after that, training his moves, and he goes to a low-ranked dungeon, and then he returns home at night. He usually goes to low-ranked dungeons to actually use his real skills, just easily beating the crap out of like little goblins, but he's actually using OP-ass skills. So after all of this is done, he goes to his room and he lays down as he opens up his character profile. It's been a while, hasn't it? I guess I've gotten a little stronger. Strength 232, agility 289, sense 200, intelligence 299, HP 60,000, MP 99,000, class demon monarch, name Asta, level 101, fatigue 0, physical damage reduction 50%. Asta would then have a faint smile as he went to sleep, and the next day came. Instead of working or training, Asta today was just kind of cutting wood, relaxing. It wasn't really much of work for him. He cut them like easily, and he would be wearing a normal shirt which showed off how much muscle definition he gained over the last year. And as he would be doing this though, he would sense 3 mages coming close to him. As the mages approached, his mom would actually sense them and come out as he puts his axes over his shoulders. Who are those people? Why are they here? Asked Lichita. Asta would then say, they might be nobles here to make fun of us or extort us. As the mages came close though, they turned out to be royal mages with robes covering their heads. And as Asta asked what they were doing here, they handed him a scroll. He would then take the scroll as the mages started walking away. Lichita would then grab the scroll and she sees that it is sealed by a special mark, and this only scares her more, but she reads it and the scroll says that a certain someone knows about Asta's secret and his true strength. Is this person talking about your shadow soldiers? They're really nice though, they help around the house. Why is this person threatening you, whoever they are? Asta would then grab the scroll, reading it himself, and it says at the bottom that if he doesn't want his secrets exposed, he should just sign up for the Magic Knights exam coming up. This would piss off Asta as he tells his mom this, but she's really excited for him because maybe it's time he finally shows the world how strong he is. Asta then thinks about it and only wants to go because he wants to see who this person is. And he says he'll go, but he'll be leaving his shadow soldiers behind as guards for his mom. Maybe a few ogres. Then in the upcoming months, Yuno, who is suspicious of Asta, would try to get him to use the same power he used before, but Asta doesn't want to and just wants to train with Yuno and have fun because, they're still friends. They're not like jealous of each other or anything. So they train with Asta just doing physical stuff and Yuno working on his magic. And Asta just kept doing, more and more and more, quests in the background, not letting Yuno know though. But Asta says that when they make it to the exams, he will show Yuno what he can really do. And this excites Yuno. Now time skipped 6 months and Asta has to leave his adventurer city and go to the Clover Kingdom for the exam. This journey takes a while, but they make it there just in time, and as they arrive, they have a bit of time to spare, so they go around checking things out, and Asta uses the money in his inventory to buy him and Yuno a little something to eat. Then after eating, they line up, and when it's their turn, Yuno goes first, showing his Grimoire, which impresses everyone and shocks them all. And when they hear what type of Grimoire he has, it's pretty amazing. And Asta would then be up next, with Yuno being able to pass, but Asta has no Grimoire, which makes everyone laugh, but the person checking everyone still lets him in because the pressure this kid is exuding on him right now is overwhelming and no one else can sense it. So he just lets him in. Asta would then pass and enter the stadium thinking, this is why I hate Magic Knights, but that person has to be here somewhere. After everyone has entered, the first test, which is the magic birds, begins. Everyone will be impressed that since he has no birds flocking him or anything, flocking over him, and some are slowly starting to realize that he is the Tempest adventurer and B rank adventurer. Asta also has no birds around him either, but it's not because of his magic, it's because he's exuding bloodlust. He's trying to hide his magic right now. But if those birds get close to him, he will cut them to freaking shreds. Everyone then wonders how this can be because they barely sense any magic from him, and it's just weird. This means that unlike in the original, Asta doesn't bump into anyone. And then the next test would start as the Captain Vengeance from, the Golden Dawn takes over using his tree magic to create brooms that everyone can fly on. As everyone receives their broom, Vengeance then talks. We're going to start the first test. We, the 9 captains, will be watching over your progress, so in the end, it's up to us whether or not you get chosen, and those who aren't chosen will fail and leave. Now, the first test is to fly using those brooms. You would then explain how to do so as everyone would then try. Some fly, some don't, and some just are barely passing, but they're passing. As Asta activates his magic, the broom starts floating perfectly and he sits on it, floating up about 100 feet into the air. Him and Yuno are getting a lot of attention because this looks so easy for them and the captains are interested. Yuno then thinks, let's see what you're made of, Asta. The next test would then be up as it's a moving target test, and Asta points and he releases his daggers out of his inventory faster than anyone can see. This would pierce the moving targets in an instant as everyone wonders if he has wind magic or something like Yuno does. Yuno would do perfectly on this one as well, and then the next one up was him testing everyone's destructive power. As Asta looked at the stone target, using Dominator's touch he crushes it, shocking everyone once again. So, does he have gravity magic? Because that's pretty impressive. Whatever, I'm not gonna lose, says Yuno. He then does this perfectly as well, with the next up being creating something, using your magic. As Yuno makes his creation, he waits wondering what Asta is gonna do because his abilities don't seem fit for that. Asta would then be thinking, should I summon a soldier? It might get me investigated, plus I'm feeling someone's attention being directed at me. I'm a nobody, so there's no reason to care about me. I know it's not Yuno, or the captains. Screw it, I have to become a magic knight for me to actually chase this person down. Everyone would then feel ominous energy flow out of Asta as his shadow grows and out of it crawls out a shadow soldier. Everyone would then wonder what Asta freaking had. Does he have dark magic or freaking gravity magic? What the hell is this guy? And the captains are confused. That kid's skill sets are pretty bizarre. Does he have multiple magic elements, says Fuegoleon? That's impossible, he's a simple commoner, responds Noelle. Yami would then say, well, whoever this kid is, I want him on my squad. Asta would then pass the creation portion as he moves on to the final test. Vengeance would then ask for anyone to step up and challenge each other, and Yuno challenges Asta, who agrees. They then step out as everyone gets out of the way, making a circle around them. Begin, yells Vengeance. Yuno's Grimoire will glow as he launches wind spears at Asta, who easily dodges them, and then Asta points just palm strikes at Yuno, who would then get pushed back a bit. As he gets pushed back, he then rushes at Asta, not wanting to give him time to use this weird gravity push. As he gets close in on Asta, though, he enhances himself with wind, and thus is actually moving really freaking fast, making people believe that Asta was done for. But then as he extends his hand out, trying to send Asta flying, his hand gets caught and Asta squeezes it. Yuno would then scream in pain as the magic captains are just kind of shocked. His magic gets cancelled and he's put down on a hold by Asta, who then asks him to give up. What is this guy? He just ignored the wind magic and grabbed him? He did everything so fast. Is he an adventurer? Wait, does that mean that he's been hiding his power? What is his magic? Yuno would then be trying to get up, but he feels this overwhelming bloodlust and says, I give up. Asta would then get off as Yuno also gets up, and they look at each other while Yuno kind of, gets the pain out of his wrist. Yuno isn't really mad though, because this proves that Asta never stopped getting stronger like they promised all those years ago, and that promise matters. The captains would then be surprised by the outcome, and then the next fights proceed. Soon, this part of the test would be over, and then came the selection as the young mages would line up, and they either get rejected or accepted. Most of them get rejected, and then, came Yuno's turn. All the captains raised their hands instantly for him, which was amazing, but Yuno of course went with the Golden Dawn. Then next up was Asta, and for a moment, all the captains got quiet as Fuegoleon would then get up asking, what is your magic, boy? I have gravity magic and some hand-to-hand combat skills, says Asta. Yami would then say, then what about that weird black creature you created out of your shadow? Wasn't that dark magic? No, that was a summon, says Asta. They helped me fight. They? How many of those things can you summon? I'd rather keep that a secret, says Asta, smirking. Yami would then smoke his cigarette, smirking as well, as he finds his kid pretty mysterious and interesting. He would then raise his hand for him, but no one else would, because they're certain that if Yuno had not underestimated Asta, he would have won, and they think that Asta must not be able to use his gravity magic all that well, and he kind of got the upper hand on Yuno because he surprised them, because everyone was surprised he was that strong. And if he's gonna hide his summons, then that's his fault, After a few hours have passed, the others who have failed go home. Meanwhile, those who did pass are following the captains to their hideout, wherever they may be. Before that, though, Asta finds Yuno and says goodbye, and then he goes to find Yami and Finral. When he does, Yami says, "You sure took your sweet time, you little brat." He then grabs Asta by the head, trying to lift him, but he can't, and Asta does not seem affected by his pressure, and this only interests Yami more. Finral would then calm down Yami as he makes a portal, and the three walk through it, making it to the Black Bull's base. Asta looks at the building, his face sitting still, as he had seen more amazing things in the demon realm. But then the front door of the base would blow up as Asta looks inside to see his new rowdy teammates. Yami then welcomes into the Black Bulls, the misfits of the Magic Order. As they step in, Yami would then tell them all to stop destroying the place, while also destroying a piece of the freaking castle. And the rowdy teammates stop as they welcome Yami, and they gather around him. And this is when they actually notice Asta, with Veronica and Charmy blushing. "This little shrimp is our newcomer. Treat him well," says Yami. "Shrimp? He's taller than you," says Veronica, laughing. And Yami would then tell her to shut up, and she does. Asta would then introduce himself. "Hi, I'm Asta. Please take care of me." He would then bow, but then Magna steps up saying that Asta is not part of the group yet until he goes through something called a baptism. So they all go outside and gather around to see Asta and Magna face each other. As they do, they also tell Magna to take it easy. "Hey, new guy, if you can deflect all my attacks, I'll give you this robe." Asta would then say okay, as Magna uses his exploding fireball, launching one at Asta, who simply smacks it to the side using his hand. This is when the others get kind of interested in the baptism. Magna then makes his fire bat as he starts using scattershot, but Asta just keeps slapping all his shots to the side with ease. Then another one came at him, but this time Asta grabbed the attack, crushing it in his hand. "We done, senpai?" asked Asta. Magna would then take off his glasses, calling Asta amazing, and everyone agrees. The other Black Bulls then gather around him, welcoming him and asking him how he did what he did. Magna then hands him the robe, and Asta puts it on and thanks them all for welcoming him so well. And as he did this, though, we then see Noelle far away as she looks down upon all these commoners, and she calls them insects. So as Asta gets accepted, he'll be shown around, shown where his room is, and he would be shown around in general, He and Magna then find themselves in front of the beast cage, and Asta, being interested in the creatures, actually sticks his hand in the cage. Magna would then tell him to stop, but one of the beasts was already about to bite him. But as this beast does, Magna would then hear a whimper, with Asta pulling his arm out, and it is completely unscathed. Magna then checks up on one of the beasts, only to see that one of them had actually broken their teeth. "Dude, what are you made of?" asked Magna. Asta would then say, "What do you mean? I'm just stronger than it is." Magna would then go to ask him more questions about what his magic is, what kind of training he does, and as he asked this, they both hear footsteps and look back to see a girl with silver hair, and she looked really beautiful. "Oh, so this is where you were. Asta, this is your teammate." Asta would then try to shake her hand, but she smacks his hand to the side, saying that she is a royal lineage and he has no right to touch her. "Okay, that's fine," says Asta. "Senpai, want to show me around a bit more?" Magna would then say, "Honestly, I look way younger than you. I wonder if I'm even fit for you to call me that." The two would then be having like a little bro moment as Asta says that he's still strong, it's fine. And then they would get ready to leave when Noelle yells, "Stop! Greet me the right way, commoner." Asta would then ignore her, as would Magna, and she gets mad, shooting a water ball at them. However, Asta would quickly dodge, bringing Magna to the side, only to realize that the attack actually curved and missed anyway. As Magna turned around, wondering why she fired an attack, she had thrown her robe on the ground and left. This pissed off Magna, because he cares a lot about the spirit of the team, and Asta would ask, what the hell's up with her? So the rest of the day would pass as Asta does his workout quest, and then he'd go to sleep. When he wakes up, he dresses up and goes outside, but before he goes to visit his mom like he intended, he's outside just walking, about to like teleport, and he feels magic being used. He sees Noelle practicing. He gets closer to see how she's doing, and when she spots him, when she spots him getting closer, this makes her lose her shit as she creates a giant water ball, or like a prison, holding her in place and up in the sky. Asta would then look up, wondering why she freaked out, and this is when the other Black Bulls come out, with Yami asking what the hell is going on. "I walked up to her," says Asta, "and that happened. We need to calm her down, and this is gonna get ugly." "Yeah, all up to you, kid," says Yami. "You were here first." "Fun," says Asta, as he would then squat down, launching into the air at incredible speed, and he just spears through the giant water ball, only using strength, and he comes out on top with Noelle in his hands. And using Dominator's touch, he squeezes and bursts the ball of water with ease. Then he starts to fall as Finral helps him land safely using a portal. Asta then lands, and everyone will be impressed at his strength, and then Noelle starts to wake up. Once she comes to, though, like, she realizes that Asta is holding her in his arms and starts blushing as would any other women. You know what? I'm actually going to draw Asta as a player. Just give me a few days. I'm actually going to care this time, okay? I will do a good job. So everyone, she's expecting everyone to make fun of her, of course, because that complex she has with her family and that trauma. But then, as she closes her eyes back up in fear, Asta would say, look, I don't know what that was, but you're really powerful. You just need to work on controlling your emotions. Everyone then agrees, as Asta would let her down, and they actually compliment her, which is surprising. And she starts to cry a bit. Asta would then say, alright, now that this is solved, I have to leave. I'll leave you with the summon, it can help you with whatever you want. Noelle then turns around and sees Asta being consumed by shadows as he falls into the ground, disappearing, and a shadow soldier pops up, bowing to the Black Bulls. What the? He can teleport? Says Noelle. Luck would then think, now I really want to fight him. Meanwhile, Asta would arrive home and spend time with his mom for a while, and since it's been so long, he also tells the orphanage that Yuno and him are doing fine. Now, time skip a few days later, and Asta will walk through the front door wearing a cape. Man, that dungeon was awesome. Now I'm what, level 110? Maybe one day I can finally see that statue again. Now, as he comes back, he sees no one, but senses them all eating in the dining room they're eating, and he heads there as the others ask him where he's been when he arrives. He says he was just training, and Charmy then kind of coddled him, like, you know, telling him to sit down, and she gave him the most food out of everyone else. Hey, just because he looks handsome, you're giving him more, yells Magna. Asta would then point at himself, confused, as he would ask Magna if he was talking to him. Do you even look at yourself in the mirror? Asked Magna. You look like a noble. Asta would actually be surprised to hear this, because usually when he approaches girls, they run away looking sick with their faces turning red. But ever since he reached level 100, he's been starting to sense emotions, so soon he might know why people act the way they do in his presence. Now, as they're eating, Yami and Finral would come back practically naked, as Yami had said he lost a bet. So now Noelle, Magna, and Asta have to go to Sashi Village and hunt boars. Hearing that they have to do this, Noelle was a bit pissed, while Asta was fine because he just came from a life-threatening dungeon, so he wants to relax. So they end up going anyway, and they all ride Magna's crazy cyclone, and having Asta be behind her, so close up to her, was making Noelle nervous the entire time. Soon they land by Sashi Village and start hunting. As a boar rushes at Asta, he kicks it in the snout, lightly knocking it out, and then another one jumps at him from behind, with Asta slapping it as he makes it pass out. Magna and Noelle, who see this, would be impressed, as they wonder if he's using gravity magic or just using his pure strength. Hey Asta, are you using magic to beat the boars? Asked Magna. Asta would then tilt his head. They're just boars, why would I do that? As he says this, his eye would then kind of flare blue as Asta rushes past his teammates, and they try to follow behind him, asking him why he's running. But the two can't keep up at all, and while they keep running after Asta, they soon are stopped by just a wall of mist, and it is made of magic. So this is why he ran. The mist would then disappear as Noelle and Magna's jaws drop. What the heck? Yells Noelle. We then see what they see, and blood-red ogres are holding down a few mages, and Asta is holding up the leader of the mages by the neck. He would then turn around saying, took you long enough, come help me out. Help you with what? Asked Magna. The cleanup, says Asta. Before we get into the second part, I would like to apologize. I called Vanessa the wrong name. I think I called her Rebecca or something. I want to apologize for that. It's a quick little thing. Anyway, let's get right into the second one. I'm not trying to bother you or nothing. Now, last time when Asta ran off, without any of his without the two of his teammates being able to catch up, we're gonna stay in his perspective, and he sees the mist barrier when he eventually makes it there, but he just runs through it with no trouble at all. When he arrives, he sees the villagers gathered up about to be massacred by a storm of icicle blades. As the mages and villagers notice him, Heath, who was the leader of the wrongdoers, would then look at his stopwatch. We can't afford to fall behind schedule. Making a swift hand motion, swiping down, Asta would see that the icicles are dropping at incredible speed, but using Dominator's touch, he stops the ice and then throws them at the enemy mages who have to dodge. As they dodge, they then surround Asta, who would then be asked who he was. I don't answer to dipshits, says Asta. Arise. Out of his shadow would then jump out two giant blood-red ogres, who then start fighting the three mages, and they're completely overpowered. Now, as they do this, Asta starts heading towards Heath, who still thinks he can handle Asta. Don't waste my time, says Heath. You're just as pesky as the rest of this swine. He then activates his Grimoire as Asta is surrounded by a bunch of icicles, but then Asta takes out one of his daggers and slashing in all directions at once, he sees his ice shatter as he then, is then grabbed by the neck in an instant. He is then held up and starts freezing Asta from the leg up trying to escape, but then Asta releases just a bit of his power. The ice would then shatter, shocking Heath, as by this point the ogres would have beaten the other mages, and Asta starts using the skill Bloodlust, forcing it all on Heath, whose eyes then start to twitch. "You felt so good when no one could stop you, right?" asks Asta. "Well, guess what? You're nothing but a small pebble on the side of the road." This is when the mist barrier disappears and Asta sees Magna and Noelle. "What the heck?" yells Noelle. Asta would then say, "Took you guys long enough, come here and help me." "With what?" asks Magna. Asta would then look at Heath, who at this point is passed out and is foaming at the mouth, saying, "With the cleanup." And Noelle and Magna then step up, being very wary of the two ogres as they check on the villagers, making sure that they're okay. Asta then drops Heath to the ground, but then this is when they all notice that a young boy is crying over his father, who's slowly bleeding and dying out. Magna and Noelle can't do anything and feel kind of useless, as Magna then thinks, "What kind of magic knight am I?" scorning himself. He then feels a tap on her shoulder as he looks behind to see Asta. The little boy then sees Asta and stops crying, as this is when Asta hands him a potion. "He's still breathing, make him drink this." The little boy would then trust Asta since he just saved them, and he served the potion to his dying grandpa, who would then open his eyes and his body was enveloped in a bright green light. His injuries were gone and he was no longer dying. He would then just sit up, shocking all the villagers and Magna as well as Noelle. "Where did you get such a high level potion?" asked Noelle. "Only nobles usually have those." Asta would then stand up saying, "I fought for it in a dungeon." Noelle then goes to ask him a question, but then stops as she sees that the little kid is hugging his grandfather who almost died, and the other villagers are super happy right now, so she doesn't want to ruin the moment. So as this happens, the kid and the grandpa as well as the other villagers thank Asta from the bottom of their heart, and soon the mages would wake up and find themselves tied up to a tree in the forest, and in front of them is the kid that beat them up, as well as his ogre summons, and now the ogres are gone and he has two human companions with him. "Now just freaking stay there, okay?" says Magna. "We need to take you back to our base soon, and you're gonna tell us everything you know." This, however, is when Heath would smile and try to self-destruct, but he can't, as he's then covered in a shadowy sort of mana, and he realizes that Asta has sealed his magic. Asta has a skill in this one called Mana Control, which he has raised to level 3, and this allows him to manipulate mana on a very high level, because level 3 is like the highest, like almost max level for the system, so it's very OP. It's not max yet, but it's already very OP. It was the fourth skill he actually got after practicing with magic a bit, and since he's learned that, just like normal, he's learned that if you work on any skill like you normally do with anything else in magic, then the proficiency increases or whatever, and you get OP. Well, he gets OP. People just usually get better a little bit. Magna would then say, "Trying to escape, are you? Well, tough. Now, how do we transport them?" Magna and Noelle would then instinctively look at Asta, who then sizes in front of them. He takes out a blade, just out of thin air, shocking them. "You can use spatula magic as well?" asked Noelle. Asta would then go up and cut all the mages, inducing a paralyzing effect, and they feel numb, unable to even freaking talk. Asta then unties them, summoning his shadow shoulders, who then carry the freaking mages on their shoulders. Asta would then say, "I'll explain later when we get back to the base." We then cut to when they arrived at the base, and Yami will be waiting for them, but he did not expect that they would return with what they returned with. Now, as the mages are dropped to the ground, the shadow soldiers would just fall into Asta's shadow, as Magna would then explain the situation. They put the mages in a room to interrogate them, and Yami would want Asta to interrogate them. As Asta enters the room, Yami and Magna wait in the hallway for about 10 minutes, and soon they would hear the screams of the mages as soon Asta opens the door, walking out and handing Yami his report. We should hand them over to the Imperial Palace or whatever. These guys are working for a pretty weird organization. "Good work, kid. You can go now," says Yami. Now, as Asta leaves, he goes to the living room where the other Black Bulls are waiting for an explanation, and seeing no other choice, Asta then reveals and shows off his ability to just hold things in a sub-dimension called the inventory. This means that he can hold everyone's valuables and special weapons or whatever they use. Everyone finds this very amazing, but when they go to ask him about the subject of his magic, he gets a bit more vague and they don't learn anything about that because Asta doesn't like to reveal anything other about the system. Spatula magic is pretty normal, but just summoning soldiers is already pretty weird. So So time skip to the next day, and Yami gathers up everyone to mention that they have gained 30 stars, and yes, 30 stars from the Wizard King, and this came as a huge shock to everyone. Apparently, this goes deeper than we know. This group could prove to be much more dangerous, and the info that Asta forced out of them was pretty useful. What did you do to them? Asked Luck. As everyone was waiting for an answer, Asta then looked at Luck, and using his bloodlust skill, he made him have a quick panic attack as he stumbled back in fear. I just overwhelmed them with the intent to kill. They're pretty mentally weak, so it was pretty easy, says Asta. Luck would then catch his breath thinking, what the hell was that? It's like I was being swallowed whole. Mauna would then check up on him as Asta apologizes, and Luck says it's fine because it's definitely an interesting experience, so he didn't mind. So then everyone gets their paycheck, and Asta puts it in his inventory, and Yami seeing this for the first time would actually be shocked as Asta has to explain it all over again. And then, Yami gets it. So since they have their paycheck, Vanessa wanted to take everyone, the newbies specifically, shopping, and as they head into the city, the three go to the black market looking at jewelry, magic potions, and mostly C-rank weapons. Yes, weapons are ranked in this world. Now as they're walking around, Noelle gets approached by Seke, who tries to hit on her, only to be rejected, and then he notices Asta. Oh yeah, he joined the Black Bulls, thinks Seke. I bet I could take him, my defense is impenetrable. So why is he surrounded by these beauties? And why is this bastard gifted with such a freaking pretty face? Now, as Seke gets rejected and feels pretty bad, he and everyone hear an old lady asking for help as a robber would then actually just pass by them, and he was holding the old lady's stuff. Seke was about to go into action and try to show off, but as he does, Asta already appears in front of the robber, slamming his face into the ground, knocking him out. How does he move so fast? I didn't even see him, says Seke. Asta would then take his hand off the perpetrator and taking back the old lady's belongings to her. The old lady would then thank them as the Black Bulls then left Seke alone in the market, pretty jealous and angry, obviously. However, as they're leaving, Asta senses someone using pretty high-level magic. There was something weird about that woman, thinks Asta. I could sense her being happy, but it was much more different than that, and she was definitely a high-level mage. So why did she... He would then realize something as he then looks back, only to see that the old lady was gone, and he jumped away, chasing the signature of the old lady, as Noelle and Vanessa then asked where he was going. He just told him he would find them later, but right now he has something to take care of. Now, as Asta chases the old woman, he hides his presence using stealth, and comes across her, transforming into a tall man. Seems like I was right about you, Asta, says Julius. So you're the one who threatened me. Julius would then turn around shocked as he just sees Asta appear out of thin air. I thought some noble was trying to blackmail me into something, but what do you know? It ended up being the freaking Wizard King, says Asta. Julius would then ask, how do you hide your presence like that? No, you're right. I did send that scroll. As soon as he says this, Asta actually appears behind Julius, with him unable to keep up, as he has a blade at his neck, and Asta says, I don't care who you are, but I don't want nobles on my ass, so tell me, how much do you know about me? Julius would then tell Asta to calm down and that he only wanted to meet him and learn about his magic, truly. And as he says this, Asta puts his blades in his inventory, surprising Julius as Asta then says that he trusts him. Using his sense stat, which is pretty high now, Asta noticed that he wasn't lying. Besides, it's the Wizard King. So, yeah, he forgets about it. Julius would say, see how you just made your blade disappear like that? That's what's interesting. About a year ago, out of nowhere, you, a magicless young man, gained magic. Others didn't care, but I did. I wanted to see if you were hiding more than you let on. Asta would then sigh, saying, look, I'm sorry about almost killing you, but I still can't let you know anything. It would literally break the balance of the magic world. But I can't let you know one thing. My strength will continue to grow indefinitely. He then disappears into thin air as Julius can no longer track him, and he's amazed by this because even when people turn invisible, there's still a hint of magic you can sense. That kid, he's at a level higher than I thought. He's at the level of the Magic Knight Captains, or maybe even higher. So as Asta leaves, he goes back to the Black Bull base and starts doing his exercises, and then he goes back to the demon world or realm to train and beat up demons. And he's climbing the tower, by the way. It's like a main quest, so he has a side quest, but he's still climbing the tower. Right now he's about like, let's say 50, floor 50. So time skip to a few days later, and somewhere far but close to the Clover Kingdom, a giant portal pulsing with a lot of like eerie magic energy would pop up, and this news reaches the Adventurers Guild, and Julius gets an idea. Now back at the Black Bulls base, Yami would then gather up Asta, Noelle, and Luck, saying that they are to go and just explore a dungeon. Oh, what level is it? Asked Asta. Yami would then say, according to its energy, it's at least C rank. Asta, you're an adventurer, right? So You can use your experience to help. Luck, you're an adventurer too. Don't screw this up. Wait, you're both adventurers? What rank? Asta would then say he was E rank, which would surprise everyone, and Luck says that he's actually B rank, which is the same as Yuno. And it honestly isn't surprising because he loves fighting, and beating up monsters seems like something he could just do from time to time just for fun. So as they're given directions and are sent to the dungeon where it's located, when they arrive, the portal is guarded by 3 people. One of them is Chris from the Adventurers Guild, and he's the one who registers parties to dungeons. The other is Naomi, a receptionist for the guild, and she checked a party like credentials, if they were allowed to go to the dungeon, etc. And lastly, the guildmaster was actually Mary Leona, who was someone assigned to the post because of her pure power, and she actually liked it because she could just boss around people. And if you came to her guild and you weren't like really experienced or were just being naive, she was gonna put you in your place. So Chris would then ask for the 3 mages' names, and Asta hands the scroll sent to them by the Wizard King to Naomi, and then she would ask if any of them are adventurers. Not that it really mattered, but you have to just know. Asta and Luck would then show their cards, with Naomi asking, have you applied for reevaluation? If you manage to become a magic knight, then you are certainly not an E rank. Asta would then say, I'm here as a magic knight, not as an adventurer. My rank doesn't matter, but no, I haven't done a re-evaluation. He would then take back his card and notice that Mary Leona was actually staring at him attentively, and he would ask her if she wants something. You can't fool my eyes, kid. You're hiding something, aren't you? Well, you must have a good reason. By the way, this dungeon does not belong to the Clover Kingdom, so there may be others in there, so decide now if you want to turn back. The group would then decide not to because they ain't pussies, and as they're leaving, Mary Leona actually says to Noelle that she looks just like her mother. But before Noelle can ask anything back, she's actually swallowed by the dungeon as it then turns red with lightning coming off of it. No, it's a red gate, Guildmaster. Yeah, I know. With their current power, they might be screwed. Shit, says Mary Leona. Now, as the Black Bulls enter, both Asta and Luck realize they're in deep crap, maybe because this is a red gate. And because they felt that pulse of magical energy, they know, and due to their experience, they know what this is. Noelle did also realize the spike in energy, but she doesn't know what it really means because she's not an adventurer. Well, this isn't good, thinks Asta. They also find themselves in a forest covered in snow, and the wind is so freezing that it's like you're being hit by ice magic. Asta, yells Noelle. Yeah, I know, says Asta as he then pulls out coats from his inventory, and the coats have a healing effect. So as Asta puts one of them on and the others do too, they start moving forward into the forest, being weary of everything. Now, as they're just looking for the treasure room, in this world, usually when you beat a boss, you get a treasure room, which you can have like a bunch of items in there from beating the boss, and there's also a portal that leads you back to the normal world. Or usually for normal dungeons, low-level dungeons, you just find your way back at the entrance of where you entered. But, most of them that are high-level, like C rank like that, have treasure rooms. Man, I love implementing the system. Anyway, so they're trying to find the treasure room, assuming that's how they can get out of here because it already looks too dangerous. So as they're just walking around, all of them sense a spike in magical energy as a fast fireball gets launched at Noelle. Thinking quickly, Asta pulls her out of the way, and in front of them was a giant creature resembling a dragon, but it had more of a humanoid shape and it could stand on 2 legs. You're pretty strong, aren't you, says Luck as he licks his lips, and then he rushes forward using his lightning magic to enhance himself, and as he hits the creature, he makes claws from lightning magic, only to realize that his attack was actually doing nothing when it landed. He would then be slammed into the ground, skipping and hitting a tree as he is bleeding from his mouth. However, he grits his teeth, launching just like a bunch of combos at the creature, because he's unwilling to give up because he has to win. None of the attacks are working though, since this creature's skills just seem impenetrable. This thing is at least A rank, but there's something special about it, says Luck. Now, as he says this, the creature would then roar, sending a fireball at him, and he narrowly dodges it by making a foothold made from a magic circle. However, then the creature keeps up with him, and he is close to being clawed to freaking nothing. However, Asta then appears between them as he stops the creature's claw with just one leg, and he pushes it down, slamming it into the ground. He and Luck then land, and he says that he'll handle this, and the creature would already be up and just send a giant wave of fire at Asta, who then swipes it to the side, making it disappear. This is because of his Dominator's touch. Title change, thinks Asta. He then uses the Wolf Slayer title, and appears right above the creature in an instant. As Asta is about to punch the creature, the Golden Dawn actually appears, being covered in injuries, and their clothes are actually really banged up, and Yuno sees Asta slam a freaking punch into the monster's head, so strong that the monster's head flattens and it slams into the ground, creating a shockwave that blinds everyone as it just picks up snow and is getting their eyes. When they can all see again, Asta is sitting on the monster and he hears, "You have leveled up." "In one punch?" says Noelle. Everyone would then be shocked, as this is when Asta notices Yuno and his party, and being surprised, he just waves at them. "Asta, you're here too?" asks Yuno. Asta would then get up and walk over to Luck just to check on him and say, "Yeah, we got assigned this dungeon by the Wizard King." He then thinks that this must have been planned by freaking, the Wizard King for them to meet without knowing, because Julius is mysterious like that. "Who is this guy? To take down a monster like that in one blow? Are you a high-rank adventurer?" asked Klaus. Asta would then hand Luck a potion, and he drinks it and is being healed, and Asta would say, "Me? I'm an E-rank adventurer. Nice to meet you." Mimosa would then say hi, being friendly, but just like Klaus, it's hard to believe that Asta is just an E-rank adventurer. So they think that he might be a false ranker. Now, while they're busy being shocked, Asta notices that their injuries, well, they're actually pretty severe, and he puts his hand into the air as it disappears, and he pulls out coats and also gives them potions that heal them. This shocks them all, as Yuno then asks, "Since when are you a spatial magic user?" "I'm not," says Asta. "Just drink and put those on. By the way, where did you get those injuries from?" Mimosa would then point at the monster that Asta had just beaten up, and he's kind of surprised because Yuno should have been able to handle that because, well, he's Yuno, but if Luck can beat it, then, I mean, it's not that surprising that Yuno couldn't either. Not that Yuno isn't stronger than Luck, but yeah. They would then explain what they've been actually doing here, because they've been here for 2 days, and the dungeon has just been warping reality this entire time, and that thing that Asta just beat has been hunting them and giving them no time to rest. So they're actually really grateful, but Klaus still has his pride to consider. Now, as being a member of the Golden Dawn or whatever, it means that these people helping him, especially if they're from the Black Bulls, he just can't accept that they're stronger than him. "Are you three truly from the Black Bulls?" asked Klaus. "Don't you see our bros?" asked Noelle. Klaus would then only get more frustrated as he's being helped by a low-tier magic group. So they actually move together as a group, just coming across more of those monsters, and Asta just beats them all in one punch, and they actually cook their meat, and some meat that Asta has in an inventory, and so they're pretty set, and Asta still does his workouts, just training. And on the third day of being in the dungeon together, everyone is in the forest just eating as Asta just stands up. "Where you going?" asked Luck. Asta would then say to stretch his legs as he then disappears, and Klaus asks, "What do you truly know about that commoner? To be able to beat those monsters with only one punch is most suspicious." "Why are you complaining?" says Luck. "Thanks to him, we haven't frozen to death. Just enjoy your meat." Yuno would then say, "Asta won't tell me about his abilities, but I don't need to know. Eventually, I'm gonna catch up, no matter how far he is." They then all hear rumbling as they run to where the sound is coming from, and they all find that the treasure room has just risen up from the cold hard ground, and Asta was already there to see this happen. Now, as everyone is just excited to freaking leave and get ready to enter, they all know that they all know, by the way, that by this point that this is a red gate, so they're really happy to see this thing, legitimately. But as they prepare to go forward, out of nowhere, a giant sword comes swinging their way. Most of them duck or jump away, but Asta just puts his hand out, punching the blade to pieces. "Show yourself," says Asta. They would then hear laughing as in front of them appear 6 people: Mars, Lotus, and 4 henchman mages. "This treasure belongs to the Diamond Kingdom." "I don't care about treasure, but you look pretty strong," says Luck. He then rushes ahead only to be pierced in the shoulder by mineral blades, and he's then hit and sent flying into the air by a stump made of minerals. "Insects shouldn't dream so high," says Mars. The henchmen would then launch at the group as everyone starts fighting. Now, Yuno easily takes care of the people coming at him, and as does Klaus, and Luck is a bit injured, but he's Luck, he's a battle junkie. However, Noelle can't do anything, and Asta appears in front of her, cutting off one of the head of the mages. "I know you're scared, but if you're not willing to try, then you'll always be weak," says Asta. "There's nothing wrong with being weak, but staying weak is another problem. You got that?" Noelle's eyes would then widen as she then cries a bit and nods, and Asta actually starts moving forward, seeing another henchman just come up to him, and he just cuts his head off too. Everyone was done with their enemies at this point and only focus on the 2 in front of them. But as they're ready to attack, they're surrounded by a smoke screen that seems to be latching on and draining their magic. Asta was easily about to take care of this, but this is when actually Noelle creates the Sea Dragon's lair for the first time, protecting and impressing everyone. But then she takes it up another notch as she expands the layer, exploding it, and takes care of all the smoke, and pushes back their assailants, seemingly. But when the smoke clears, Mars protected Lotus and himself with a mineral barrier, and then he made it disappear. "You're only prolonging the inevitable. Just give up," says Mars. Honestly, they hate to admit it, but he's right. This guy feels way more dangerous. Also, people in this are way more strong than in the original, but that doesn't really matter because Asta is so stronger. But, like I said, Asta doesn't really like the tone of arrogant people. Any version of Asta doesn't have the time for them. So he's had enough of this, guys. He then says, "Arise, Egress." Ominous energy would then just hit everyone, paralyzing them for a moment as a demonic, shadowish knight appears in front of Asta, bowing. "What the hell is up with this magic?" thinks Klaus. "Egress, why don't you go for a walk?" says Asta. The knight would then understand what its master was asking for, as he then stood up and took out his sword, marching towards Mars, who sent a bunch of mineral swords at him. But in one cut, Egress cuts and breaks all the mineral swords, just shocking Mars, and he takes this more seriously, creating like 4 giant swords that are coming from all sides at the knight. But Egress would then just slash in 4 different directions, as the swords just once again shatter. "How is this possible?" yells Mars. Now, as he would go to do another attack, Egress, however, appeared right in front of him as his sword was near his neck, but as the yell stopped, in just enough time for the sword not to cut his head off, and a huge gust of wind hits Lotus and Mars, who were freaking scared out of their minds, by the way. "Asta, what the hell is that guy?" asked Luck. Asta would then say, "That's my faithful knight." "Egress, your job is done." Egress would then put his sword down, just bowing towards Asta, and he then fell into the ground, turning into a shadow and rejoining Asta's shadow army. Asta would then start walking up to Mars and Lotus, and he would then put his hands on both their shoulders, whispering, "I'm sure now you know which group is preventing the inevitable. We don't have to fight each other, we can just split the treasure, and then we can all leave safely." Both Mars and Lotus would then be hit by overwhelming bloodlust, and they agree right away to just chill the hell out. And Asta turns back, gesturing that it's okay to come closer. So they all just walk into the treasure room together, seeing that the wall is actually made of magic, before they enter. And Asta just decides to crush it using Dominator's touch. He then points at the wall, making it crumble as it then disintegrates and everyone enters. Now, as they do, Asta explains the deal he made with the diamond mages, so everyone gathers up as much treasure as they can, and Asta stores it all. And his storage has a lot of space. Mars and Lotus have to use a magic bag to hold their part of the treasure, and it can hold quite a lot, but not enough. It can at least hold 100 things, but it's not that big of a deal. In this world, like, magic items, which are like high level for people, is like low level for Asta, like way low level. So yeah, anything he buys in the store is practically freaking national treasure. So yeah. So while gathering up the treasure, they're also having fun. Everyone's just having fun except for Lotus and Mars. But Yuno comes across something interesting. He picks up a scroll and opens it to see a weird, just types of glyphs. And these weird glyphs would then shine as everyone would then see this. But then the shine goes down, and for a split second, Yuno actually already sees the spirit of the wind, or Sylph spirit, usually what's called like RPG type stuff. The spirit Belle. Anyway, I'm gonna stop getting sidetracked. Then Belle disappears, and as she does, they all see a portal just appear in front of them. "I guess we can finally leave," says Asta. Asta then makes sure that everyone gets out, and he gets out himself. And as he and everyone get out, they find themselves in front of weary guild members, and Julius, the Wizard King, is present. Instantly, Mimosa, Klaus, and Noelle bow to him. No, please, this isn't the time for that. I'm just glad you made it all back. You all made it back alive." Merlione would then ask, "What happened to your clothes? And who are those 2 other mages?" Asta would then say, "They're from the Diamond Kingdom, don't worry. They were just leaving." As Asta looks at them, the 2 would then leave, scared, as Julius as well as Merlione noticed this. Not knowing who the Wizard King was, would then ask why they're bowing to this man, and when Klaus tells him who Julius is, is shocked as he bows, saying hi, and Asta does the same. "So this is the Wizard King," thinks Julius would then say, "Now, I look forward to hearing about your exploits, but first you must go back to your squads and come back the next day, or receive your reports then. But I would love to ask, just how did you manage to survive this red gate? It's almost S rank." Everyone would then slightly look at Asta as Julius kind of smiles, and Asta then starts leaving, saying goodbye to Yuno, and Noelle and Luck follow him. Now, as Asta would leave, with the others, they go back to the Black Bull's hideout, and Merlione would then ask, "Who the hell is that kid? I know he's not an E rank." "He'll reveal himself in due time, you just have to be patient," says Julius. So we got to the next day as Asta and Noelle are walking to the palace, and as they are, Noelle is super nervous to be alone with Asta, Luckily, though, ahead of them, they soon see the Golden Dawn team. "Oh, Asta," says Yuno. "Hey," says Asta. He then waves at Yuno and by extension Mimosa, who then blushes as she then waves back at Asta. Asta would then say hi to Klaus, who kind of ignores him, scoffing because he hasn't really accepted them yet. But anyway, they move together as a group, and soon they make it to the castle, and the whole way, Noelle and Mimosa were just catching up and kind of discussing their feelings about Asta. When they arrive at the palace, Julius greets them and makes them follow him to a tower. And atop the tower, Julius asks, what happened, a report, their experience in the dungeon. Then Klaus explains everything, being attacked by that giant creature, meeting the black bulls, and Asta saving them, the warm coats, spatula magic, fresh meat. And when Klaus is done talking, Julius then turns to Yuno as he then asks about the new spell that, the scroll thing that Klaus mentioned. And then Yuno would open up his grimoire showing a new spell as he then says that he saw something that looked like a fairy as well. Interesting. Well, I'm sure you'll find out more about this later. I'm looking forward to it, Yuno, says Julius. Yuno would then thank Julius as Julius then looks at Asta and his eyes are twinkling. "So, what have you got for me?" Asta would then stick his hand in his inventory as it just disappears, which is still weird for people, and all of a sudden, gold just starts to fall out of the freaking thin air and onto the ground, and treasures are just freaking falling out, like, constantly. Julius would then tell him to stop. "Just how much space do you have in there?" asked Julius. "Infinite," says Asta. This then shocks everyone because that shouldn't be possible, and then Asta focuses as all the treasures just goes back into his inventory, and Julius finds this very interesting. "Come on," says Julius, "you gotta have more than that." Asta would then sigh, thinking that he doesn't mind showing off a bit, and he takes out a dagger, and he actually got this a while back from a demon elf called Baruka. Yeah, that's why it's called Baruka's dagger. Yeah, so it's called Baruka's dagger, and as Asta pulls it out, everyone can feel the enormous amount of magic power emanating from it. "When the hell did you get that?" "Where the hell did you get that?" asked Yuno. "That's at least an A-rank weapon." Asta would then hand the dagger to Julius, who inspects it, being amazed at its design and its sharpness, and he actually cuts himself by accident. But as he does, Asta makes the dagger disappear, legitimately apologizing, and Julius would actually find this funny because he can also be kind-hearted sometimes, and he asks Asta if he can give him that dagger. Asta then says it's impossible because it's one of his 3 favorite daggers. "Does that mean you have more than one A-rank weapon? You have more A-rank weapons like this?" asked Mimosa. Asta would then nod as this is when Julius's tone changes. You can just give us the treasures later, but you know what I really want to see. Your summons." Asta would then smile, actually agreeing, and they go down to like a free area as everyone then stays back, and Asta, who was standing in front of Julius, will then finally, for the first time, release all his magic. This makes everyone, and I mean everyone in the Clover Kingdom, fall to their knees, even the magic knight captains who were waiting for Julius in the feasting room wherever. So this is his true power. It's astonishing, thinks Julius. Now, out of Asta's shadow would then come out more than 50 soldiers, all ogres, giant bears, and demon soldiers, as well as his 3 strongest generals, Tank, the demon bear, Igris, the demon knight, and Beru, the demon ant king, and then, his strongest summon. By the way, he has more than 100, yes, shut up, okay? I know what most of you are going to think, and don't lie, you were thinking that I was going to make him have only 50 soldiers. No, he has more than 100, there's just no point in showing off, okay? I'm going to stop now. Is he really a commoner? Thinks Klaus. Would then be baffled as this is when from the sky Noelle, Charlotte, as well as Vengeance and Fulgurion just dropped down, having sensed Asta's huge amount of magical energy, and they're threatened by it. They thought an enemy had arrived, and instantly they attack Asta as Noelle then uses his magic spell, Silver Rain. However, as Asta would point at the magic, using Dominator's touch, he just switched the direction of the attack and sent it flying back at Noelle. The other Magic Knights would, the Magic Knight captains would also be hit by this, and they would then slam into the ground bruised as they then felt a huge, as they get closer, they just feel more and more of Asta's power. "Julius, who is this attacker?" asked Charlotte. Julius would then call him down, saying, "He's not an attacker, he was just showing me his power." Now, as he said this, he realized that all Magic Knights who were waiting for him had actually come outside, and they were like ready for a battle. And he sighs as Asta just stops releasing his power and unsummons his soldiers. "I'm not here to hurt any of you, but if you attack me, I will fight back," says Asta. Julius would then say, let's take a little break, shall we? Everyone stand down, Asta isn't a threat." So time skip a few hours and everyone is in the feasting room. Julius has explained everything, and now he's on the podium explaining more. Julius would then say, "I personally sort of invited him here just to see his power. He was just courteous, so there's no need to be weary. But speaking of Asta, he has brought some very special information to my attention. We might be under siege soon. Everyone would then shudder at the thought of this, wondering what sort of information Asta brought to Julius's attention. Julius would then say that after the feast, the Magic Knight captains were to gather and then, come to him so he can tell them the news. He would then go to talk about the merits that Asta and Yuno deserve, and the same goes for other squads because they've been working hard. And this is when Julius actually was done with his speech, and he would then leave. Now, the banquet starts as Asta and Yuno just walk through, getting some food, and they're already being stared at, but they're kind of used to it. Now, as Asta goes and puts some food on his plate, he starts eating and is approached by Mimosa and Klaus. "Are you okay, Asta?" asks Mimosa. Yeah, why wouldn't it be?" says Asta. Klaus would then say, "You got attacked by Magic Knights. Magic Knight captains. How can you say that?" "Why do you care?" responds Asta. "You clearly don't like me." Asta would then go back to eating as Klaus wonders why he does care, and then he leaves. Mimosa follows him, apologizing because right now they're kind of being signaled to stay away from Asta, from their vice captain. "Maybe I should have released all of them. That would have been hilarious," thinks Asta. Yuno would then approach Asta eating as well, and as he then asks Asta why he doesn't show off his power more often, because it might get him more respect. Asta then says that he doesn't need to excessively show off because he's already got everything he wants, and that includes his best friend. "You never change, do you?" asks Yuno. "Why mess with perfection?" says Asta. The two would then start laughing when all of a sudden they both hear a light scream, and Asta sees Noelle with water on her head, and it was being dumped on her by her brother Solid. "So you think you can just talk back to me now, huh?" yells Solid. Noelle was then almost about to just freaking cry when she feels a tap on her shoulder. She looks up to see Asta, who was finally freaking snapped. He makes a hand motion, swiping down as Solid slams into the ground, being forced down by gravity. "What gives you the right to ridicule others, you damn noble?" Asta would then start being binded by sand as the vice captain of the Golden Dawn says, "Don't get cocky, commoner." However, as he says this, his sand is blown off as Asta stares at him as he spits out blood, and Asta squeezed him using Dominator's Touch. Asta works more on proficiency of his skills constantly, so they're mega overpowered. One piece of advice that he got from his dad is that you should always train your skills to your best ability, because having magic doesn't always win in a battle. Nebra Silver, who was Noelle's sister, would then send a strangling mist at Asta, who then uses his Dominator's Touch to just swipe it to the side. And he also slams her down, holding her down with gravity. If this bullshit is what you nobles pull on a daily basis, then maybe I should become the next Wizard King and get rid of your noble status. "Wizard King? That's not even funny," says Noelle. But as he says this, he actually spits out blood as well, as Asta had released his siblings and was now focusing all his attention on Noelle. Noelle would then actually tell Asta to calm down, but he does not listen, and he walks up to Noelle and then puts his hand up, holding him up to the ceiling. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't kill you right here." At this point, everyone in the room would be shocked, unable to do anything. This kid just overpowered Noelle of all people, and they know that they'll just end up like the others if they interfere. "Stop, young man." Everyone would then see Forgolion enter the room, as he then tells Asta that if he despises his bad noble so much, then maybe he shouldn't act so reckless himself. Asta, then using his sense stat, would then sense Forgolion's sincerity, and he releases Noelle, who then slams to the ground, bleeding. "I apologize, but if anyone hurts my teammates, whether it be emotionally, physically, or mentally, I will not hold back." He would then go back to Noelle, apologizing for taking it too far, and she would start scolding him with her noble mannerisms, and the people Asta beat down would then get up, staying quiet as they don't want to utter another word, even Noelle. And the rest of the banquet would just actually go very smoothly, and no one acted very arrogant at the fear of being killed or being slit at the throat by Asta. But that lingering feeling was also what kept everyone on high alert, and Asta, Mimosa, and Noelle, as well as would just keep hanging out, and they're just having fun. But then they all just see Asta's eyes just turn blue, and he then quickly opens the windows as everyone senses an abundance of magic, and then they get on guard. And then a guard runs in saying that the kingdom is under attack. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," thinks Asta. As the guard enters the room, letting everyone know about the kingdom and the fact that it's under siege, Asta wastes no time in getting ready to jump out of the window he was close to. "Where the hell are you going?" yells Klaus. Asta would then say, "What, we're just gonna let citizens die? I can already sense who's causing this, so I'm gonna go stop it. You can do whatever the hell you want." He then jumps out of the window, landing on a rooftop as he starts sprinting towards the main problem. I like the way he thinks, says Leopold. We then cut to the perpetrator of this incident as he is about to hurt a little girl who is too scared to move her feet. This kingdom is gonna burn, and you'll go down with it, girlie. He then starts cackling as we zoom up to see the kingdom covered in undead creatures and fire, and the undead creatures are attacking and overtaking the kingdom. Now, as Rades is about to kill the girl, however, a fist lands in his jaw as Asta arrives on the scene, punching him so hard that he falls to the ground, immediately passing out. I hope I didn't kill him. We need to question him later, thinks Asta. He then turns around to see the little girl and asks if she's okay, and she would nod, but notices that she's shaking. Hey, my name's Asta, what's yours, says Asta. Marie, says the little girl. Asta would then pick her up, holding her bridal style as he says, well, Marie, is your brother maybe named Gauche? You know my brother? Asks Marie. Asta would then say, yeah, he's pretty obsessed with your safety, so I'm gonna leave you with one of my most trusted partners. He's a knight. He then summons Egress and hands her to him as he then notices that the undead have actually started to melt to nothing because Rades is out, thus his magic is deactivating. Now, as Asta sees this, he gets found by Leopold and Noelle. He really did know the main cause of the situation, thinks Leopold. Now, Asta then notices them, and he is holding up Rades like on her shoulder, and he then dodges a magic missile simply by tilting his head, as he then looks up to see a spatule mage on the rooftop. Then all of a sudden, he's surrounded by enemy mages. I'll give you one chance to give up now, or your heads go flying, says Asta. You really think you can take on all of us, says one of the mages. Asta then tells Egress to give Marie to Noelle and then capture that mage up on the rooftop. Now, as Egress then disappears from sight, he appears right next to Noelle and Leopold and hands Marie over. And then Leopold gets excited, wanting to join Asta and help him. These guys are small fry, says Asta. He then disappears in the blue streak as all the mages have their bodies filled with holes in an instant, and Asta reappears where he was, making his dagger disappear. Trust me, I don't need your help. Leopold will be really impressed, as this was when Valtos gets precautious. What's with that speed? I have to get out of here. He then feels a presence as Egress is already behind him, about to literally kill him. What the hell is this creature? He would then be trying to fight Egress, who's actually completely overpowering him, and soon Fuegoleon would then arrive on the scene to see what Asta was doing, and he was holding a man knocked out over his shoulders, and he saw the undead were basically already gone, so he figured that one of the main problems was taken care of, but you know, the other mages, the rebel mages, are still attacking. Is he the cause of the attack? Asked Fuegoleon, just to make sure, and Asta would say, yeah, well, yes, among other things. He would then throw Rades to Leopold, as he then says Orai, summoning an insectoid creature with domineering aura, almost as powerful as Asta. May I know why you have summoned me, my king? Asked Beru. Asta would then say, destroy the mages who are not affiliated with this kingdom, and don't go overboard or you're dead. Beru would then bow as he disappears from sight, and as he disappears, Asta looks up to see Egress had knocked out Valtos, and Egress jumps down, laying the knocked out Valtos on the ground in front of Asta. Asta would then tell him he did a good job on summoning him, as Fuegoleon would then ask, just what are those creatures? Whatever they are, says Leopold, they're very powerful, and really useful. Now, as this happens, above everyone appears the captains, who would then land using Nozelle's silver carpet or whatever, I guess, and they land as the captains start walking around, noticing the undead are gone, and the magic singers they've been sensing are actually being killed off. I assume this is your work, asked Charlotte. She then looks at Asta, who nods, and Beru reappears by Asta in an instant, shocking everyone. That thing is dangerous. His mana, it's overwhelming. And it's bowing to that commoner? Beru would then call Asta his king, saying that he had taken care of all the enemy mages, and that it seems that the attacks have stopped. He also reports on Yuno, who actually was a big role in stopping them, because he actually just awakened his wind spirit. Asta would then say, good job. I'm sorry I couldn't give you anything befitting of your skills, says Asta. Beru would then submit himself even more, saying, please, my lord, you need not be so kind to this servant. It is my honor to follow your orders. Asta would then tap him on the shoulders, summoning him, and everyone is just kind of baffled by that conversation, because Asta is already strong, but he's stronger than the creature who defeated all the enemy mages, attacking the kingdom in an instant, and called it easy work. What's with the stairs? Asked Asta. Noelle would then say, just kind of surprised that you just saved the entire kingdom, and you don't seem to care. Julius would then appear right behind Asta and in front of everyone, who would then bow to him, but Asta does not, which pisses off some of the magic knights, because they legit have respect for Julius. He, means something to all of them. I see everything has been taken care of, says Julius. And where the hell have you been? Aren't you supposed to help protect the kingdom? Julius would then say, well, I assumed you taking care of everything, so I went out to find out more about this organization. Their leader, he might have been stronger than me. I met him. Everyone would actually notice the cut on his cheek and be worried about the situation because Julius literally is untouchable. He never gets hurt. So realizing how dangerous this is and how useless they were compared to Asta and Yuno, a commoner as well, this makes everyone motivated as they promise to get stronger. This means that Fuegoleon is not hurt. Yay. So time skip to the next day. The captured members of the dangerous organization have been held captive and they're being interrogated. There were basically no casualties thanks to Asta, and it was morning as Charmy, and Noelle were walking around the city. Now as they are, Charmy hands Asta a cookie and he eats it saying it's yummy, which makes Charmy and Noelle blush because of his smile. And as he's eating, Asta senses the golden dawn and looks up to see them walking on another road. Hey, I heard about your power-up. Good job. As he says this, he would then hear Klaus actually apologize to him in a sincere, heartfelt manner, and this surprises him and the Black Bulls. Asta would then say he accepts his little apology, and this is when Asta and Yuno kind of lock eyes as Yuno actually activates his magic, thinking, I want to see how I am compared to you, Asta. Using the full power of his magic, he creates a construct of an eagle, which then launches at the Black Bulls, making Mimosa and Klaus freak out. How should I take care of this, thinks Asta. In his right hand would then appear Baruka's dagger, as he then launches it at the attack and enhances it with the Dominator's touch. And as he does this, the blade makes the magic attack just explode to nothing, like implode on itself, because the blade just like cut through it. And as as this happens, gets a cut on his cheek, and behind him he hears a crack. The Golden Dawn group would then turn around to see the dagger stuck in a wall, and then it disappears. As they look back, see Noelle on the ground, scared out of her mind. That damn fool is trying to kill us, yells Noelle. Asta would then, looks like you have a long way to go, buddy. He and his team would then go their separate ways, as Yuno says, I guess I do. So the Black Bulls will then make it home, and as they enter, Yami walks up to Asta, handing him a scroll, and, as usual, the other members are messing around, destroying shit. What's this? Asks Asta. Congrats, kid. I guess Julius was so impressed with you that he made you a senior magic knight. What? Yells Luck. All the Black Bulls would then be shocked, as his rank easily surpasses all of theirs, and it's barely been a freaking week. Asta would then see that his adventure rank was also raised to A, and he says, this is going to be annoying, isn't it? Annoying, says Vanessa? You know what, at this point, I'm not surprised. That's just classic you. What do I feel like that's kind of an insult, asks Asta. Everyone would then laugh as he then bows, thanking him sincerely for accepting him into the Black Bulls and, making him part of the family, and they congratulated him on his massive rank up. Yami would then say that that Julius is actually giving the squad 10 more stars, which again is shocking because they are the laziest group. So as they celebrate a bit, Asta is actually about to go help Noelle train, because he's been noticing how her magic kind of trails, and he thinks that he can help her with that because of his magic sense, his sense that in general, he just knows what's going on. But then as he's about to, Finral asks if he can go clubbing with him. What? Says Asta. We then cut to Asta and Finral sitting at a table facing 3 girls. However, all the girls looking at Asta, and Finral notices this, and he thinks, damn it. And then he says out loud, so my name is Finral, I'm 21, and I'm a spatula mage associated with the Black Bulls, and he's, pulling out flowers or whatever, the Finral way, I don't know. He then nudges at Asta, telling him to introduce himself, and Asta says, hi, I'm Asta, 15 years old, I'm a gravity magic user, I'm also with the Black Bulls. Luck would then introduce himself as the girls go, as well mentioning their names and their jobs, but honestly, if it wasn't for Asta, they would have probably left and wouldn't stick around. Because just like everyone else, they don't like the Black Bulls, but Asta just has that kind of aura around him. Then Finral will be talking about, their exploits, and the girls really want to know what they do as magic knights. Luck would then go into gory detail, talking about whatever he wants, and even if it made the girls uncomfortable, he didn't really notice or care. As for Asta, he actually talks about things and missions as well, but honestly, because he has a mother, he's more understanding about girls and girls' feelings, so he's not dense as hell. He understands how it works between a man and a woman. Also, because Lichita is a pretty open person. If you haven't read the manga, she's just like Asta, except way more smart. So at first things are kind of boring, but in the end each couple starts to actually kind of hit it off, and Asta is left talking with Rebecca, and Asta is actually hitting it off with her, making Noelle mad because, Noelle's a stalker and she's been following Asta, and she's a bit more mad than she would like to admit, and because Asta and Rebecca have a lot in common, they're both trying to help their families. They both have a lot of responsibility despite their age. However, as they're talking, their table is approached by a drunken man, and he starts talking about how Rebecca is trying to mooch off Asta somehow, and she looks like she's been abandoned and all of that. She must be a freaking like prostitute or something, trying to like do something. It was just something like that in the manga, and he then goes to grab her by the arm, yanking her as she struggles to get free. All of a sudden, Asta then grabs the man's arm, hoisting him up with ease like he's holding up a freaking balloon, shocking everyone in the inn. He then walks out and throws this hillbilly out of sight, yelling, "Don't judge people like that, you don't know their circumstances." He then walks back to the table, asking Rebecca if she was okay, and she says yes, thanking Asta, who then says that maybe it's time to get out of here. They all agree and leave the inn. However, Asta is the only one who actually gets invited to a girl's house, and while Finral teleports him and Luck back home, Asta goes to Rebecca's home and meets her siblings. Now, as Asta goes to Rebecca's home though, Noelle does follow them for a while, before deciding to go back home because she realizes how weird she's being. Now we go to a different perspective, Gauche's. Like usual, he's obsessing over Marie, and in fact today was her birthday, and he had just finished a mission and was walking to the orphanage with a ton of gifts in hand, and had a nosebleed just from thinking about his sweet little sister. However, soon as he approached the orphanage, he saw a sight that would anger him. Asta was playing with his sister, using Dominator's touch, and Asta had been making all of Rebecca's siblings flow and Marie flow, and they were just kind of having a lot of fun. Asta would then let them down and went to pat Marie on the head, but then Gauche came out of nowhere trying to kick him in the face. However, as he landed a blow on Asta's face, everyone just heard a crack as he actually broke his ankle doing this, and he would then be in pain jumping up and down on one leg as Rebecca asked who this weird guy was. "Oh, this is Gauche. He's an obsessive siscon." "I am not," yells Gauche. He would then still be in pain, and Asta hands him a recovery potion as he then drinks it, and his leg is fixed. But as soon as he is fixed, he still started bothering Asta, who was afraid that Gauche's intent to kill would activate the system. "I don't want to have to kill this guy," thinks Asta. He would then appear behind Gauche, neck chopping him as he fell, and Asta caught him. Marie would then run over asking if her brother was okay, and Asta said that he was fine, he just needed to take a break. Sister Teresa would then come over apologizing for Gauche's personality because she's been dealing with it for a long time. And then Sister Teresa started taking Marie back to the orphanage. You know what? Since she likes Igor so much, I can lend him to her for now. Besides, she might end up in the same situation as last time, thinks Asta. Asta then puts Igor in her shadow without anyone knowing or even noticing, and then Asta just stayed over at Rebecca's. Asta just left Gauche at an inn with a letter for him, for him when he wake up, and he already paid for the charges or whatever. So as night would fall, we then see Asta in bed sleeping peacefully, and from behind him would creep up Gauche, who was pissed off. "Die, you little rat." He then shoots a mirror ray, only for it to be swallowed up by Asta's shadow, and this freaks him out, and he's kind of weirded out, and Gauche would try to hit Asta again, but then he heard a voice behind himself, and he turned around to see this gigantic insectoid creature with a presence that made him want to throw up. Beru would then start stroking Gauche's face with his claws as if he was staring at prey. He was practically drooling. "You dare try to hurt my king. I guess that means I'm allowed to. Stop it." Beru would then return to Asta's shadow, being unsummoned as Asta sighed, saying, "Gauche, what the hell are you doing?" You shouldn't have met my sister," says Gauche, as he then falls to the ground, being overwhelmed by the pure bloodlust that Asta is actually giving off right now, due to being annoyed and being woken up, and due to the fact that Beru thought of him as just like prey and was literally about to eat him. Gauche was paralyzed, meaning that if Asta hadn't stopped Beru, he would be dead. I could have actually died," says Gauche. "Yeah, no duh," says Asta. "Dude, if you do something like that again, I won't stop him next time. Now get out of my room." Gauche would then grit his teeth as he then left the room and went outside. However, Asta would then sense a lot of magic, and he puts on his clothes and goes outside to see that it is actually snowing. He then sees Gauche and Sister Teresa arguing, and his enhanced hearing would let him hear that all the kids in the orphanage have disappeared, and that includes Marie. What? Wait, this snow, it's made of magic. Definitely has something to do with mind control. He then sees people coming out of their houses as they yell for their kids, and Rebecca runs out yelling and telling Asta that her siblings have actually disappeared, and this was just weird and annoying, and this is when things get more intense as Asta sees Gauche holding up the sister by the freaking collar. Moving quickly, he appeared by Gauche, slapping him on the arm, making him release her as she lands safely. "Would you stop acting so impulsive? This isn't her fault. It's clearly some other mage," yells Asta. "You said Marie was gone as well?" Teresa would then say yes, and Asta says, "Good. What the hell is good about that? Yells Gauche, obviously being mad. Asta would then grab the two to his side, saying, "It's good, because I can do this." He would then use Shadow Exchange, which was now level 2, and the three would disappear as Asta tells Rebecca that he promises he's going to fix everything. The three then disappear and reappear with Igris taking their spot. However, Igris was certainly busy as he had just finished killing off Barrow because, well, Neige attacked. Actually, let's say in this timeline, Barrow actually slapped Marie, which is why Igris came out and fucking killed him. Neige was just, being a pussy because he is one. So, yeah. Neige was about to be cut in half by Igris, but as he was on his butt, like shaking in fear, literally about to die, Igris disappeared and in front of him appeared 3 people. What? Where'd that thing go? Gauche would then look behind to see the group of kids as well as Marie, and he would then quickly check up on his little sister as he runs to her, only to then see that she has a bruise on her cheek, and he gets mad as hell. All the kids seeing Sister Teresa would just run to her, and and they're being comforted. Meanwhile, Asta was questioning Neige, asking him why he did all this, but he would then have to put his arm up and protect Neige from Mirror Ray, and he then turns around pissed. Gauche, I know how mad you must be, but calm down. Calm down? That little shit hurt my precious Marie. He deserves death. Of course, this isn't true. Neige actually didn't touch, Marie, but by extension, it's his fault. Now, as Gauche yells this, he finds himself being moved away by Asta as light strikes where he was once standing. What the hell was that? Asked Gauche. Asta, as well as everyone, would then look up to see a man with long blonde hair falling through a black portal. Another spatule mage? This guy, he's more dangerous than the other attackers, thinks Asta. Licht would then land as Asta yells, "Get out of here, all of you, right now." "You're quite the dependent young man," says Licht, "stopping our advance on the kingdom. But then you made a mistake." He then appears right by Asta at the speed of light, only to then feel overwhelming bloodlust, which then makes him jump back on instinct. What is this? How could I be scared of a mere human, thinks Licht. Gauche would then grab Marie and leave, and Neige runs out, as does Sister Teresa and the kids quickly as they can. And as they do, Asta makes Rasaka's fang appear in his hand. Looks like you're going to be worth the extra effort. So please, show me what you're made of. Licht would then start flying as he shows off his Grimoire, which is actually a 4-leaf clover, just like Yuno, and multiple light spears just start flying out at Asta, who would then cut them all to nothing, and he keeps moving towards Licht. He then activates Sprint, appearing right in front of Licht as he then stabs him in the shoulder, and he then uses Vital Strike as Licht spits out blood, with him getting a hole in his stomach, and in his chest, and in his side. Licht then quickly disappears, reappearing a few feet away as he starts healing himself as quickly as he can because he got hit in the freaking chest and he has a hole in his chest. Who is he? Thinks Licht. He doesn't even use a Grimoire. He's beating me? I refuse to accept this. Licht would then feel this overwhelming pressure as he's forced onto the ground face first, and this causes a crater as Asta slowly approaches him, and then he kneels down. After such a show of magic, I thought you'd be stronger. He then flicks up with his index finger, making Licht fly up, and then he slams into the ceiling as he spits out blood, and Asta then just slammed him back down onto the ground. Licht would then get mad, releasing all of his magic, and this makes the cave shake, as those outside would see a bright light, which completely fills the area and explodes out. Now, as this happens, we cut to a few minutes later when Asta had just teleported away and Igris took his spot. Now, as Igris had arrived, everyone who was on the street was surprised. However, Noelle then came out, revealing she was around, and asked Igris, "Hey, you, Knight, has Asta gone to investigate this?" Igris would then nod, and recognizing Noelle, and he doesn't mind talking to her. Well, he can't talk yet. And Noelle would say, "I wonder if I should call for backup." Now, we then cut back to the cave. That was a really short cut between Noelle and Igris. We then cut back to the cave where Asta was slightly blinded by Licht's light magic, and he then stood up to see him flying above him. "I underestimated you, but now it's time to end all of this. But I would like to know what your name is." "It's Asta." His shadow then grows with a new demon soldier climbing out of it as it then bows to Asta, confusing Licht. But one thing that he is very cautious about right now is how this creature seems to have more magic than he does. Does this mean this human was hiding his true power? What is his magic? He would then brush this off and try to use his ultimate attack with all the magic he can muster, launching a divine judgment ray, but on a way more massive scale. Asta and his summon then get engulfed in light, and Licht lands down, breathing heavily as he was actually still healing his body from Asta's blows. But the fight wasn't over yet. He would then feel a huge amount of mana and pressure as he then hears these words, "I'm of protection." Licht would then see Asta and his demonic summon finally completely fine, and in front of him was a transparent purplish barrier, and Tusk then points to Licht saying, "How dare you attack my king? Heim of agony." Licht would then burst with blood from every orifice in his body, his eyes, sockets, mouth, etc., and then he fell to the ground, seemingly dead, but Asta knew he was just on the verge of death, but he wasn't there yet. Asta then keeps Tusk around as he then approaches Licht, and then he lifts him up by the hair, and he slammed his hand on Licht's chest. And his dark aura, like magic, would then just engulf and envelop him, thus sealing Licht's magic. This means that Licht could not heal himself or do anything, meaning that he was close to dying. Player has unlocked new skill, Curse. Asta would then be surprised by this, and then he checks the skill for a bit to see that it was apparently a skill that allows him to use his magic to curse people, obviously. And right now it can apply 2 effects. It can lock magic for 5 minutes, depending on, like, how strong the enemy is, and literally everyone in this world is weaker than Asta, so everyone gets their magic locked for 5 minutes. And they can also cause unbearable pain in whatever area you touch the target for, like in their chest or leg, their head, for 5 minutes as well. I can curse people? That's kind of weird, thinks Asta. He then looks at Licht getting ready to stab him as he brought out Rasaka's fang, but he then has to put his arm up and block a punch from Vito, and this impact caused a shockwave to ripple out as the cave once again shook and rubble fell down. Heim of agony, says Tusk. Heim of agony, says Tusk, as Vito would then burst with blood from his eyes, just like Licht from every orifice of his body, and then Asta gets up, punching him in the stomach, sending him flying into a wall. "I know you're there, come out," says Asta. Raya would then speed over, grabbing Licht and appearing by Vito, healing him slowly but surely. "Who the hell is this guy? He actually beats me in strength," yells Vito. Raya would then say, "I don't know, but he beat Licht. I don't think we should stick around anymore. Let's find out more about him, but this guy's pressure is scaring the hell out of me." He then gets ready to teleport away and take everyone with him, but his arm gets hit and stabbed into a wall by Baruka's blade, or dagger, which then made him scream in pain as he gets paralyzed. Asta then appears by him, about to hit him as he puts his dagger back in his own hands, but then he's almost hit by a wall of fire, and he jumps back just away, like just in time. "Fuck," thinks Asta. The wall of fire then disappears, and the Eye of the Midnight Sun are gone. Now as this happens, a portal then opens up behind him, as Asta then sees the Magic Knight Captains walk out. Jack, Yami, Noelle, Fuegoleon, Charlotte, and Marileona actually walks in. "What are you guys doing here?" asks Asta. "We heard that organization or whatever was launching a coup." "Well, you don't need to worry, they're gone." "Cowards," says Asta. He then made his dagger disappear as he unsummoned Tusk, who actually thanked him for summoning him. "You're saying you claimed victory?" asked Noelle. "Yes, but they escaped. But they have no idea I can get to them whenever I want. I placed one of my most powerful soldiers on all 3 of them." "You're just full of surprises, aren't you?" Asta then says nothing, and he starts running out to see Funeral was outside teleporting all the kids away, and he smiled, just feeling relieved, And actually, some of the kids hadn't gotten their magic erased yet because Igris stepped in. Actually, no, none of the kids had their magic taken because Igris stepped in. And yeah, because Igris is awesome. So, time skip to the next day, and Asta was sitting surprisingly with the captains, of the Magic Knight orders, and Julius put them all there and told them to wait until he came to get them. But the captains didn't understand why Asta was put with them, and then all of a sudden the captains just started fighting non-stop, getting rowdy, which surprised Asta. And also, since the last incident, Asta has gotten a new request, a quest, called the Flame. Just the Flame? And the key's white? Mysterious. I'm gonna need to bring my A game. Asta would then just stare down for a while as Yami would then yell, asking why Julius is keeping them here. And as he says this, Marks would appear in front of them, using his magic, and then he tells everyone in the room that they need to go down to the basement, I guess you could say, so they could the questioning room. And as they get down, they start walking there. They enter. They see a bunch of people strapped up to the wall, and the list includes Heath, Rades, Valtos, and some other mages who attacked the kingdom who were captured. They also saw Julius and Mark standing in front of the prisoners as Vengeance then asked, "What do you need this for?" "Well, I mostly need Asta, but what you hear during this little moment cannot be revealed to the public." Charlotte would then say, "How will he help? Does this mean you haven't been able to get anything out of them?" "No, we haven't," says Julius. "So, Asta, you think you can help?" The room then gets quiet as they all stare at Asta, who then starts walking out, stretching his arms, saying, "Arise." Out of his shadow comes Tusk, who then bows in front of Asta, asking what he was here for. Asta would then ask Julius why they can't get any info from like the prisoners, and he says that there is some protective, really strong protective type of magic blocking marks from getting any info. I know what I must do, my king, says Tusk. Tusk then gets out of kneeling and starts walking over to the prisoners as everyone in the room is sure of one thing. This summon was definitely filled with way more magic than they all had. Even Julius feels a bit overwhelmed, not that he shows it, and Tusk then gets close to the prisoners as he raises his hand saying, "Hand of corruption." All the prisoners would then twitch as the protective spell around them disappears in an instant, and seeing this, Marks activates his magic as constructs of spiked domes appear above the prisoners' heads. Julius would then get serious, asking an important question. For a while, I've suspected that there may be a traitor among us, leaking out information, helping the other side. So let me ask you again, who in the Order was working with you? They all then answered that the captain of the Purple Orchis was their accomplice. Everyone would then look at the captain of the Purple Orchis, who then gets mad, arguing his case. What? Give me a break. Why would I betray my own kingdom? If you didn't, then there's no reason to get so worked up, says Asta, meaning you must be hiding something. Everyone of the captains would definitely agree, as a lot of rumors also circulate around Lugner, who is the captain of the Purple Orchis, so right now he doesn't seem so innocent. Marsh then said that if he wanted to be proven innocent, he should just let him use his information gathering magic on him. However, Lugner wasn't so keen on this, and in a moment of panic, he pulls out his Grimoire, activating it as he starts turning invisible. However, as he is, Asta then points at him, slowly clenching his fist. Unless you want me to crush your windpipe, you and your army will stand down. Army? Questions Charlotte. Lugner would then become visible as his invisible soldiers just appear, about to attack the captains, who are shocked at Asta's senses. Then the soldiers would then turn to nothing as Asta then gets closer to Lugner as he uses Curse to seal his magic for 5 minutes. He then drops into the ground as he tries to punch Asta, who then meets his punch with his forehead, making him break his arm as he then falls back to the ground holding his hand in pain. You're not bad, but that was pretty messed up, says Yami. So with Lugner now captured, Marks uses his magic to unveil all of his plans, and they were deeply terrible. And this is why Julius also told him to only keep the stuff to themselves. So anyway, they are then told to be more vigilant, and then they are dismissed. And as they are, Asta and Yami are then called to Julius's office, and as they are brought to the office, Julius then fills them in on the magic stones and how they need to get one, which is one of the grand zones of magic. Now, having received their mission, Yami and Asta would then be walking home out of the palace, and Yami then asks, "Hey kid, how's strong with those guys at the cave?" "They were pretty weak," says Asta, "but they were certainly bloodthirsty." "Why are you asking?" Yami would then let out a smoke from his cigarette, saying, "No reason." So from here on out, we're going to do a huge time skip. The Water Temple arc will happen, but things will go a bit different because I will not be covering it. And because due to their injuries from fighting Asta, the Eye of the Midnight Sun have named him enemy number 1. So they don't attack the Water Temple as they know it might be suicide, and they want to wait until the right time to get back the stones. So everything goes easily as Asta and Noelle still meet Kahono and Kyoto, and they become friends and all that. And during this time, Asta, with his sense stat, tells Noelle that in advance that she instinctively always closes her eyes when she fires her magic because she doesn't want to hurt anyone, even though she won't really admit it. And this arc will be a great time for her to grow in general, and as she does, everyone helps her control her magic more, and she can now accurately shoot water balls at targets. Now, having gained the magic stones, the group then goes back, and about a day would pass as the next day comes, and Asta is in the forest, checking out the quest he got yesterday. "What have you got for me this time?" He then fully accepts the quest as he runs to where the key told him to go, and it was really early in the morning, so most of the members were still asleep. He went to a spot in the forest as he puts the key in mid-air and twists it. A huge purple portal would then just open out of nowhere as he puts his fireproof cloak on and then checks his equipment and all that in his inventory, and then he enters and he goes to a different and new part of the demon realm. He instantly sees what his quest is, and it is to be a guardian of sorts. However, Asta felt very nervous because this dungeon reminded him of the place where he gained his powers to begin with. However, the probability of meeting that giant statue again kind of intrigued him, so as he moved forward, he had to fight a bunch of actual demon nobles, and soon he made it to a room where he had to fight a huge skeletal dragon, which was guarding a white flame. Asta had to use a lot of strength to get the flame, which was pure white, seriously, white as hell, and soon he did beat the guardian, and as he did, his clothes were actually slightly battered, and he got some good drops though, so that's good. Asta then picks them up thinking, I wonder how long this quest took. Unfortunately, this one isn't timed. He then looked at the white flame, which was up on a pedestal, and he slowly walked up to it and touched the flame. Now as he did, it actually entered his body, making him kneel down in pain. The flame at this point was not only entering his body, but becoming part of him, and after a minute or so, the assimilation was over and Asta had gained a new skill. Player has learned new skill, White Flame. Asta then stood up as his clothes and his fireproof cloak were actually burnt off, and feeling a bit annoyed and amazed at this skill, Asta checks it to see that now he can actually gather flames in his hands, which are able to burn literally everything. If I level this up, I'm gonna be literally unbeatable. Now, about you. He then walks down and looks at the skeletal dragon that attacked him, which was the guardian, and says, "Arise," but it doesn't work. He then focuses and says so once more, as the dragon turns into a huge dragon demon soldier, and the dragon was now much bigger, and Asta named it Kaizel. He then got the Heartstone in that moment and just put Kaizel in his collection, and he said, "Alright, let's go home." He then crushes the Heartstone as his surrounding area just changes and he appears back in the forest. These are his current stats, okay? Strength 335, Agility 345, Sense is 280, Intelligence is 400, HP is 70,232, MP is 334,060. His class is still Demon Monarch. His name is Asta, obviously. Level is 130 now, and his fatigue is 35%, but now his physical damage reduction has risen up to 70%. Just a little stronger, says Asta. He then gets a notification saying that he also earned a new title, Holder of the White Flame, and this had a status effect. It actually increases his mana by 50%, and enemies who touch the player with ill intent will be burnt, like badly. Asta thinks this is way too OP and is feeling excited to add this to his power set when he senses just a bunch of mages breaking through the Clover City barrier. He then summons Kaizel as the massive dragon forms from under his feet and launches into the sky, flying towards the city to help. We then cut to Langris, Finral's brother, as he had just beaten a mage who could use a corrosive, slimy sort of fluid. He then feels a shadow cover him as he looks up to see a gigantic, dark dragon who roars, catching everyone's attention on the battlefield. Asta would then stare down at the diamond mages who were still flying in the sky, as one of the diamond mages then went to say, "What the hell is that?" The mage that asked that would then be hit by pure blue flames that destroy him and his entire fleet. The dragon then turns around aiming it at all the flying mages, killing them all in an instant. We then cut to Yuno and Belle, who asked, "Yuno, what is that thing?" "It's Asta. It's definitely his magic. It's unlike any other." "What the hell did you pick up this time?" Now, all the diamond mages in the Clover Kingdom, as well as the citizens, they all see this giant dragon, which is something that only exists in legend. Luckily, though, it seems to be on the Clover Kingdom side. However, the dragon would then disappear, imploding on itself as Asta reabsorbs it and starts falling. He then slams down, landing into the ground as he just says, "The Diamond Kingdom, huh? And what the hell is Captain Vengeance doing with these vines?" Asta would then be found by Yuno, who landed down from the sky, and Charmy as well as Finral would arrive. "Where the hell have you been?" yells Finral, "and why are your clothes so burnt up?" "It was a dungeon," says Asta. "Don't worry about that right now." Asta's shadow would then grow as out of it comes about 9 demon soldiers, just foot soldiers, and he would yell, "Spread out and evacuate everyone." The summons would then spread out as Asta summons one last person, Tusk. Tusk would then come out bowing in front of Asta, who asks him to take care of all the diamond mages. "What do you mean?" yells Yuno. "There's no way he can just take care of all." Tusk would then cut him off, shouting Heim of Gigantification as he grows, towering over everyone, and he is able to sense all the mana of the diamond mages as he shouts Heim of Combustion. Now, as he says this, all the diamond mages would be just consumed by just a ball of fire, which would then blow them up while they're inside it, effectively killing them all in an instant, and that includes Lotus, who was spying on Vengeance, seeing what he could do. However, he died, so yeah, and Vengeance also saw it and gets surprised. Also, I don't know what the Heim of Combustion is. I think I forgot it. Tell me down in the comments what it is. I don't think he actually uses it, because I went to Google and tried to find something, but I don't know. Maybe I should just read the, the manual. Maybe they have it there. I should have done that. But yeah, I'm just going to make that Heim of Combustion now. Sorry. Vengeance would then think, "What is this?" He then notices Tusk's huge amount of magical energy, and he sees him as a giant that's towering over the city, but then the giant just, shrinks. Licht for a moment would then break through as we see his twisted face of anger just for a moment before he hears Yami's voice, and he reverts back to Vengeance. "Mind telling me what's wrong with you?" yells Yami. Vengeance would then turn around facing Yami as they start talking on the rooftop. Now, as they converse, Asta's soldiers would be fanning out and rescuing people who at first were a bit put off by them, but then they trusted them because they were dressed as knights, so it should be fine, right? This means that Asta only brought out his foot soldiers and Igris to lead them. So soon this whole thing would be over and everyone is safe and Asta has become stronger, and he also got to add an entire army of mages to his army. So now it's not just like, fire mages and stuff in his army. It's mages with different abilities, and no one even noticed he actually did this. We then cut to Asta being in front of Julius as Yami and Vengeance are by his side. Thanks for the help, Asta. Seems like your collection has grown. Is there any... Asta then cuts him off saying, no, you can't see the dragon. It would literally break through the ceiling. Julius would then get kind of like, mad and frustrated, but is also scared because Yami, Vengeance, Vengeance, and him realize that somehow Asta's magic has become more potent than before. Every time I see him, he never fails to amaze me, thinks Vengeance. Asta would then all of a sudden just smile in the creepiest way, making everyone feel uneasy as Julius asks if there's something wrong and if he noticed something. Asta then says it's nothing as he says, well, I need to go visit my mom, so if you don't mind, later. Using Shadow Exchange, Asta then gets swallowed up by shadows as he disappears and is gone. However, the ogre that Asta switched with, switched places with was put on Yami to keep an eye on him because he's now fearing that people will attack his team. I'm not the only one who felt it, right? Asked Yami. Julius would then say, no, you're not. That kid is becoming more and more of a monster. So we cut to Asta arriving at home for the first time in a while, and he sees his mom actually sleeping, and he smiles, kneeling down as he grabs her hand just like he used to when she was sick. I saved you. I really did, thanks Asta. Licht would then wake up for a moment and sees Asta as she sits up patting him on the head. Welcome back. How are things at the capital? Asta would then say they're fine, and he would ask his mom if he could just stay like this just for a bit, and she says sure. However, Asta's sunny disposition does not show his true thoughts right now. So, Vengeance, or William, whatever, you're the light user, huh? I did not see that coming, thinks Asta. So fade to black, and the next day Asta teleports back to the Black Bulls, and it is early in the afternoon. So as he comes home though, he only sees Yami and senses no one else in the building, and Yami's reading a newspaper like he usually does. He would then ask Yami where everyone else was, and Yami says that they're out training. Well, if you have some free time, wanna spar? Yami's eyes would then widen as he looks at Asta and gets intrigued, saying sure. Why not, but don't look down on me. Asta then laughs as they go outside, and they stand side by side as Yami says, on my count, we go. Asta then nods as when Yami counts down to when they disappear, and the forest in front of them has a huge explosion just appear in the middle of it. We then see Asta take out Baruka's dagger to block a sword strike from Yami, and then he shoves Yami off, making him think that Asta was going to cut his cheek, only for him to be sent flying into the air by a punch to the stomach. Is this kid just really a mage? Asta then appears behind him with Yami barely able to see him and keep up with him as he gets the punch just slammed in his face, and he slams into the ground, leaving a huge crater in the forest, destroying the surrounding trees just even more. Asta then lands down squatting as out of the dust cloud created by the clash, Yami runs out with the dark slash, which Asta actually dodges very easily, and then Yami launches a few more at him, but he dodges again. Yami then appears in front of Asta, striking down with his sword, with Asta only using Vital Strike, and Yami's sword is knocked to the side, and then he gets a cut on the side, and then a huge hole in the shoulder. Yami would then be shaking his boots, but he's kind of excited for the challenge as he and Asta would just keep trading blows for hours and hours. And surprisingly, this is the most fun Asta has ever had, and the goes same for Yami. This battle also allows Yami to grow and develop as he actually uses Dimensional Slash, but it also helps him learn to perform better since Asta has this constant domineering, just dominating presence. So soon the Black Bulls would arrive to see the two still fighting, and even though it's almost night, they're still fighting. Luck would then say, man, I really wish I was here when this all started. They devastated the entire area just for a fight. There is no more forest, says Noelle while being wide-eyed. So as she says this, the whole group would then be hit by a gust of wind, and they'd be blinded for a bit, and they would then see again, and when they would see again, they would see far off in the distance that Asta and Yami would jump out of a crater. The Black Bulls would then run towards the two, seeing a heavy and a heaving Yami. Why am I messing up so much today? And they completely find Asta as he was trying to help Yami stand, but he said, hell no. Oh, hey guys, says Asta. What exactly prompted this? Asked Vanessa. Asta then hands Yami a potion as he drinks it, and he's completely healed. All the wounds are gone. And Asta would just say, he wanted to spar, so we did. Well, you guys really went all out, says Magda. I really wish I could do this one day. Who says you can't, says Asta, confused. Everyone would then lift an eyebrow to this as Asta says that from here on out, if they want to get stronger, he'll be their training partner if they want. And this gets everyone excited as Luck then says, here I come then. Luck would then create lightning boots as he goes to slash at Asta with his lightning claws. However, Asta easily dodges it, stepping back as Luck goes after him again. Asta then sees a flaming fireball coming out of him, and he just smacks it to the side. Come on, you can do better than that. Magna, who threw the attack, would then jump in, tag teaming with Luck, and Noelle would then yell as Luck and Magna look back to see her shooting a giant sea dragon at them, and they move out of the way so, Asta can take the blow. Asta would then think she's improved, but it's not enough, as by using his Dominator's touch, he just grabs the dragon, just crushing it, as it appears behind Noelle with his blade about to cut her. But then his movements are kind of stopped by this invisible force, and he sees that Vanessa is doing this. Don't get so ahead of yourself just yet, Asta, says Vanessa. However, Asta would just yank the thread a little bit, pulling her in already, and then Ghost would step in to help, and then Gordon joins the battle, and so does Gray and Charmy, and Yami would go inside to go get some sake, but then he stops as he goes to train in secret on his own because he's a captain and he doesn't want to, let down his team. So this training will be what motivates everyone to just try harder, a little bit better, and a week passes. Now during these weeks, Luck's speed and mana increases by a lot, and his body just naturally moves before he even thinks about it, like his next moves, because he's had to fight like that to try and surprise Asta. And Magna does get better, but he specializes in control because he finally learns that he needs to just stop fighting like Luck and not just use pure power. He's just a commoner, and Luck, despite being a commoner himself, just has a lot of mana. He just doesn't have that, so he's gonna try to learn how to create traps, and he does, and they're very effective. Not effective against Asta, but they're really good. And Noelle, finally getting the training that Asta was actually preparing for, learns the Valkyrie armor way earlier, but can only maintain it for 5 minutes, so it's her ultimate move. But her control has gotten way better, and she doesn't really miss anymore, like at all, unless she's like disturbed or, feeling frustrated or, flustered. Charmy, who was already pretty strong, just gets stronger. Ghost focuses on the power of his mirror ray since being traumatized by Beirut that one time. And while fighting with Asta, for the first time ever, Gordon screams with so much passion, surprising just everyone because they thought he was mute or something. And this, brings him closer to the team. The same goes for Gray, except she doesn't yell. And now everyone knows her true form and face, so she learns not to only be more comfortable with herself, but Asta tells her that her magic is one of the strongest types he's ever seen, because at a certain point, even though she didn't realize it, she actually healed herself and closed up a wound, from being hurt by Asta. Hearing this from someone that strong just made her more confident and proud that she no longer took that huge form because she didn't need to anymore. Vanessa also focuses on the grip strength of her strings, but she notices that it's not enough strength, and as for Henry, for some reason he just can't suck magic out of Asta, and the system tells Asta that he will find out why when he gets stronger. Even Finral eventually joined the training, but Asta gave him a special bracelet from the item that, from an item that was in the store. This gives Finral the strength of 20 men, but he needs to train with a bit with it, because if he combines his strength with teleporting, he could become really powerful. He could have a really unorthodox fighting style you're not used to. So during this training, Asta also puts his shadows on everyone to keep them safe, and we then switch to Vanessa's perspective as she's talking to her teammates. So that's it. I need you guys to accompany me to the Witch's Forest. Why do you need to go there though? Asked Luck. Vanessa would then say, I spent enough time being a drunkard. I have to get stronger, and for that, I need her help. Who is this person? Asked Noelle. My mother, says Vanessa. We then cut to the entire team riding on brooms as they arrive at the Witch's Forest, and in front of them would come out an army of witches, as one witch said, Halt! Your companions may not pass. I want an audience with you, yells Vanessa. The confused witches would then watch as the entire team gets enveloped by a flock of crows, and then they disappear. The entire team would then be teleported to the queen's room as they look up to see her sitting on her throne. You complete failure, yells the witch queen. You've returned, have you? The entire Black Bulls team would then feel the pressure of her magic. However, Asta is unfazed by it, and he then releases this explosion of pressure on his friends, surprising the queen. Who is that man? She then focuses her attention on Vanessa. You ruined all my plans, If you had just stayed under my wing and not followed that mortal, you could have the power to control fate itself. Alright then, says Vanessa. Teach me how to control fate itself. The queen would then figure out she was here to get some training in. However, this would then piss off the queen because after all those years of leaving, she just came back acting like she was the queen herself. You are far too insolent. She would then send an army of crows at Vanessa to snuff her out, but Asta would then appear in front of Vanessa, just taking out Baruga's blade as he slices and dices, instantly cutting all the crows to nothing. I suggest you calm down. He then points down, crushing the queen under gravity as she's feeling her internal organs just freaking being crushed. After all, she's not alone, says Asta. For a moment, Asta's eyes would then shine purple before going back to blue, and he releases his bloodlust skill, overwhelming the queen, who then starts to breathe heavily. She's basically on the verge of death, but Vanessa tells Asta to stop, and he does, as Vanessa then helps up her mother, saying that she only came here to get some help because she doesn't want to be weak anymore. I want to feel complete. I want to be complete, yells Vanessa. The queen would then be stunted, but as she goes to say something, she would then be interrupted by her alarm. Her golem, which was supposed to be like protecting her entire, her people, just freaking was killed off. "You're under attack, aren't you?" asked Magna. The castle of the queen would then start to shake as everyone tries to, stay stable, and Asta would then ask, "If we stop the attack on your kingdom, will you help Vanessa? You don't plan to force me?" "I'm a reasonable person," says Asta. The queen would then think about this and say sure as the black bulls then get ready to go crazy, and making a portal for everyone, Finral activates his spatula magic and everyone jumps through it, leaving it to, leaving the castle to go stop whatever it is that is happening. When they arrive outside, they realize that the Diamond Kingdom is attacking again, but there seems to be another army coming from another side, but they don't seem like they're a team or anything. Now, Luck being Luck would head out without any warning as Magna chases after him and they head for the Diamond Mages. Charmy decides to go with them, as does Gauche, and this leaves Asta, Vanessa, Gray, Finral, and Gordon to fight the other army. Now, Finral makes another portal and they arrive to see a forest just burn down and witches are being killed off one by one. So, targeting the main leader of this army, Asta pulls Fauna closer using Dominator's Touch as he then slams a punch in her face, sending her skipping across the ground. Fauna's followers would then go to attack, but the Black Bulls go after them. Meanwhile, Asta approaches Fauna, who starts to get up, bleeding at the mouth. "You again. Raya says I should avoid you, but I don't care anymore." She would then summon the Fire Spirit, which would then go to claw at Asta, but he dodges, throwing his dagger at Fauna, only for the spirit to block it. But the blade then disappears, shocking her, as Asta appears above her with a cross slash. Fauna would then get 2 huge cuts across her chest and spits out blood. The Fire Spirit then waves at Asta, who dodges once again, and Fauna jumps in on it and starts flying away into the air to avoid Asta. Now, as Asta lands back down, he would then see Finral teleporting and punching like a ton of mages at once, and it actually seems really effective, and he's helping the others. Maybe giving him the power bracelet wasn't such a good idea. He would then use Dominator's Touch to stop a huge ass incoming fireball, dissipating it as he sees Fauna just raging to look away while fighting me. Me! You humans are always so frustrating. Don't compare me to normal humans, lady. You attacked us first. I'm just retaliating. He would then activate the white flame skill as his skin starts to steam and his clothes burn off. Launching towards Fauna, he then puts his hand out as she then shoots a huge fireball at him. However, Asta's hand would make contact with the attack and his hands just burn through the fireball, which then he just spears through it and makes it to the other side, landing a punch in Fauna's stomach. "How is this possible? We're loved by Mana. You're just a human." The Fire Spirit then gets unsummoned as she falls, and he catches her, turning off the white flame skill. "It really can burn through everything, even fire magic. I really wish it wouldn't burn my clothes though," says Asta. He then closes his eyes and spreads his senses to the other battlefields to check on what the others are doing, and they're pretty good, but he senses the other Black Bulls being chased back, and Luck would then land near him, as do the others, and then Mars comes with them. Asta then gets ready to kill Mars because he attacked them before, but then Luck says that he's on their side now. Kruger, who was, a swordsman, magic swordsman, would then land down as well, introduces himself as Mars' master and that he's here to help them out. He and Mars then notice Fauna in Asta's arms, and their eyes just widen as they would ask, as Asta would then ask if they know her. "She's my friend. Why was she attacking you?" asked Mars. Asta would then hand her over, saying that his best bet is she's either being controlled or she's really falling that far off the deep end. This is when Ladros would arrive, crating into the ground, and he was already pretty powered up since he actually absorbed some magic from the witches he killed earlier, and Ladros would then say, "You're banning against me? I've never liked you, Mars." He would then shoot an attack at Mars, who was holding Fauna, only for Asta to come in and cut the fireball in half with his dagger. He then starts rushing at Ladros, and rays of fire start to approach Asta, but as this happens though, Ladros was thinking that he was in complete control of the situation. Asta would then actually put away his dagger, activating the sprint skill as he effortlessly dodges all the attacks and he deflects from with his bare hands. "What the hell? That's not possible," thinks Ladros. Asta then appears right below him as he slams a punch in Ladros' stomach and he activates his white flames, burning a hole in him. Asta then throws more rapid blows to Ladros, who actually tries to absorb the flame, but as he tries to, he gets an internal injury. "Trying to sap my magic, are you? Trust me, you couldn't handle me or even a bit of my full strength." A punch would then land in Ladros' face as Asta rips off his head and it burns to a crisp on impact. "Who is this guy?" asked Kruger. He's someone you really don't want to mess with, responds Mars. Now, Asta turns around with his shirt now actually being fully burnt off and his abs and muscles are exposed. He would then say, yeah, that's really gonna get annoying. He then deactivates the skill as he grabs a normal shirt from his inventory and puts it on. The Black Bulls then rally around Asta, asking what that white flame was just now. However, as they're doing this, Mars would approach Asta, thanking him for holding back against Fauna, and Kruger thanks him as well. Can I see her for a moment? Asks Asta. Asta then puts his hand on her stomach as he closes his eyes, spreading his magic through her body, and this would allow him to disperse essentially the soul of the elf that was taking over her, and this returns her back to her normal self. So the reincarnation spell that was building up, whatever, it's gone. She then opens her eyes as this is when she sees Mars, and she hugs him with all her might and he hugs her back. Seems like you held up your end of the bargain, says the Queen of the Witches. Everyone then turns around to face her, and Vanessa then asks if she will help them now. Not exactly, says the Queen, as she then uses her blood magic and spreads it across where they are right now, and she holds everyone up on crosses made of blood. You don't want to do this, says Asta. Oh, but I do. I'm the Queen. You really thought I would listen to you? She then makes the blood around enter Asta's body. My specialty is blood magic. Soon, you're going to become my blood puppet, and you will kill your friends, one by one. What is wrong with you? Yells Vanessa. Asta then cracks his neck as the magic that's inside him gets dispelled because of the fact that anything that tries to mess with the player won't happen, so he can't be mind controlled. Don't worry, senpai. She's nothing but an ant. He then starts moving towards the Queen, that is actually really scared, and she threatens to kill everyone, but Asta activates Bloodlust with everything she casts just disappearing as she cannot focus. She falls to the ground as Asta grabs her by the neck and holds her up, slowly squeezing her neck. Fuck you, says Asta. He's then about to squeeze and kill her on the spot when a red cat appears on his arm and somehow he just loses grip and he releases the Queen. He then sees that this creature is tethered to Vanessa and thus he packs it, understanding what has just happened. Let's just go home. Looks like you don't need her anymore, right? Says Asta. Gordon would then say, indeed, but even for you, Asta, that was pretty brutal. Asta then looks back at the Queen who was about to leave, but Asta tells her to stop as he then asks for the earring, which is a magic stone they actually need. She then gives it up as Asta tells her to never get near Vanessa again unless she wants to suffer a horrible agony. They then use Funeral's portal to go home, saying goodbye to Mars, Fauna, who would then go on their separate ways as well, and and Kruger as well, obviously. Now, as they step back into the hideout, they see Yami reading a newspaper while smoking. Oh, you guys are back. What happened? You stink. They would then notice the smell of the sweat kind of coming off of them, and they laugh as they decide to go to the onsen in the castle. The Black Bulls were back home once again. So a few days would pass as we see Asta appear with his mom at the hideout. So this is where you work. I guess you could say that. I still think this is a bad idea, says Asta. Now as he says this, the other Black Bulls would just walk out into the living room asking Asta if that was his sister or something. This makes Lichita blush as she says that she's actually Asta's mother. Noelle would then be stunted thinking, it's her, the final boss, the ultimate enemy. So the Black Bulls would then, take their turns introducing themselves, and Noelle is really nervous to be doing this because she essentially likes Asta and she kind of knows it now, but now it's that's Asta's mom. Yo, this is the woman I'm supposed to be getting the permission from or whatever. I need to get her on my good side. So as they introduce themselves, Yami would then come out and he does the same as well. We're actually about to go to the festival. You should join us, says Yami. Lichita would then say sure as they get to the capital, and there's a celebration that's already started. The streets would be lit up by lights and there's a ton of people everywhere just eating and doing whatever. And Asta would be buying stuff for him and his mom. He would then meet Kyoto and Kahono and they would start to find Noelle as they start just hanging out, with Lichita sharing embarrassing stories about Asta as a kid. Now while they're laughing and enjoying themselves, a voice enhanced by magic would then echo throughout the crowd. Thank you all for gathering. For this year's festival, I will be presenting the Magic Knights Awards. Julius will then reveal the appearance of the Midnight Sun and the fact that the Spirit Kingdom and the Diamond Kingdom are obviously out to get them. But that is why they have Magic Knights. And so he introduces the Magic Knight captains, except for Yami because he's enjoying the festival unlike them. Now as the crowd is cheering for them, Julius then introduces the squad in first place, and it's actually the Golden Dawn, tying with the Black Bulls, which shocks everyone, including the Black Bulls themselves. Now, showing all of their accomplishments as well as the Golden Dawn's accomplishment, the crowds would then see that someone from the Black Bulls was the reason why, all those shadow creatures came and helped them. And, the dragon, someone is responsible for the dragon. And, this was then that they would just start murmuring, asking, who was the knight that saved all of us? Yeah, those soldiers saved my child. Put him up on stage. Let us see the Shadow Army. Yeah, the Shadow Army. They would then start chanting for the Shadow Army, as Noelle would then tell Asta to go up there. And he doesn't really want to, but then Julius points at him, telling him to go up on stage. For the love of... He would then instantly appear on the stage with his hands in his pockets as he waves to the crowd, making all the girls blush when they see him. And also today we have Yuno from the Golden Dawn, who has done great to contribute for the safety of the kingdom. Yuno then steps out, getting a lot of cheers, as well as Julius would then say, believe it or not, these two are actually commoners. The vice captain of the Golden Dawn would then be hating on Yuno, and now the crowd is also doubting that commoners could be that strong, or that these two are even commoners, because honestly, even without like the magic, Yuno doesn't look like a commoner at all. So Yuno would then tell Bell to go full power, as a lot of magic will release from him, surprising everyone, and he points at Asta. I don't think this is a good idea. Don't tell me you're scared, says Yuno. Oh, you're funny, says Asta. He then releases half of his magic, blowing back the captains and Julius as well as the crowd a bit, and Yuno then shoots an attack at Asta, who then, out of like nowhere, pops out a magic claw, a magic shadow claw out of his shadow that catches and blocks this attack. This claw then, comes out and claws out of Asta's shadow as it flies up into the air, revealing itself to be Kaizel, the dragon. Wow, it's really him, says the crowd. Licht would then say, my son sure does know how to make an entrance. She then laughs with the others getting nervous when they see and, hear this, and they would be wondering, that's his mom? How is she used to that? Now everyone is just amazed by this display of power, with Kaizel landing behind Asta as he bends down, or he or she, I don't care, as he bends down and Asta rubs his cheek, just like, petting him. These two are some monsters, aren't they, thinks Julius. After getting some cheers and applause from the crowd, of the festival, Asta unsummons the dragon as he and Yuno then leave the stage, going backstage, and then Julius introduces the actual king of the kingdom, who is very egoistic and very annoying. After trying to give an overwhelming speech, she would then leave as Asta and Yuno go backstage to leave, only to find that Fuegoleon is trying to calm down Mereoleona as she scolds his squad. You idiots, the pride of the Crimson Lions isn't something you can just afford to ruin so easily. Sister, it's my fault we've been slacking so much lately. Don't take it out on them, said Fuegoleon. I am blaming you. Have you gotten so soft that you cannot lead your own team into battle properly? Oh, that's the Guildmaster. She's way more scary once you get to know her, huh? Thanks, Asta. They would then start to head on their merry way when she would bring up training, and this only interests Yuno this time because he wants to get stronger than Asta. A training camp, huh? Interesting. Now, as he says this, Yuno would be caught by a claw made of fire, as Mereoleona would suggest that he come along as well, and Asta would say, have fun. Mereoleona would then throw a fire claw to catch Asta by the head, but in an instant it dissipates as Asta turns around saying, no thank you. All of the Crimson Knights, and including Fuegoleon, would be impressed as he was able to stop her at all. Did this kid somehow get stronger? And so fast, thinks Fuegoleon. He would then step up apologizing for his sister's behavior, and he would ask, would you please accompany us? You are a senior magic knight. Everyone would then say, he is? Asta would say, yeah, but... And I happen to know you became an A-rank adventurer lately, says Mereoleona. He did? Asks Yuno. Why didn't you tell me? Asta would then shrug his shoulders, saying that he has to go pick up his mom, and Mereoleona would then ask, then why don't we get her opinion on this? What? Says Asta. We then switch to when Asta and Licht are in front of everyone, and she says it could be fun and she wants to come along. Leopold would then say, but ma'am, it's gonna be dangerous. It's fine, says Asta. That's what the ogres are for. 3 ogres would then pop out over, out of Licht's shadow, towering over everyone, and then they re-enter Licht's shadow. Mom, I really don't want to do this. Well, too bad, says Licht. I want to see what my son's like in action. It's fun. This would make Asta smile as he agrees to go to the train, but before that, Mereoleona gathers a few people. She brings Noelle, Charlotte, and her adopted sister Sol, and Yami. We then cut to a few hours later when everyone finds themselves at a grand magic zone, and the zone is also a volcano filled with magma and extreme heat everywhere. Asta would then touch his mom, covering her with his mana, thus protecting her from the heat. What do you just do, thinks Mereoleona. She would then explain what type of training they're going to be doing, and they need to get to the top of the volcano in front of them. And at the top there is a natural hot spring where they can rest at. This also sparks Asta's interest as he grabs his mom bridal style and just carries her and disappears from the sight of everyone heading up. That kid has the right idea. Come on, get in line and go, yells Mereoleona. Everyone would then listen to her as the captains start using mana skin and it interests the others who don't know how to use it yet. Now, as for Asta, he naturally doesn't need mana skin because his skin is so tough that it doesn't matter. But he can also do it if he wants because his magic control skill. Are you sure this is safe? Asked Lichita. As she asked this, she would look down being scared as Asta would get a notification. Player has increased skill level. Dominator's touch has reached max level. New skill, gravity magic. Use of skill drains MP based on the complexity of a spell. Basic spells need to drain only 10 MP. Wait, what? Gravity magic? What was that? Asked Lichita. Asta would then snap out of it saying, "Nothing. Mom, hold on tight." As he says this, he would then run up the volcano, and the other magic knights are still trying to catch up. "I would not let myself be outdone," says Charlotte. Marileona would then overtake them all at incredible speed, thinking, "Come on, kid, let's see you do something interesting." Now, as she says this, her and the magic knight captains will be blown back by Asta's gravity magic as he applies it to himself, catapulting him way ahead of everyone and into the air, and his mom just looks down in amazement. Now, if I combine my new skill with my magic control skill, then Lichita would then be expecting him to fall and panics a bit, but then she notices they're not falling and Asta is actually flying. How? Since when could you fly? Since now, says Asta. He would then slowly drop down as Yuno, who was flying up and was also sent flying back, would see this and everyone else would as well. "A rival," says Leopold. "I need someone like him to get me stronger, but just how strong are you, Asta?" Soon everyone would get their asses in gear and they would make it to the top and they would see Tusk making a wall to create a place for men and ladies to bathe. Marileona, who had made it there first, would ask, "An earth mage?" Lichita would then answer, "He has more than 5 magic attributes. Isn't that amazing?" "But that's impossible," said Marileona. Asta would then say, "Well, if it's Tusk we're talking about, it's nothing much." "Thank you, my lord," says Tusk. Marileona would then be impressed. Not only did this kid beat her in speed, he has so much more he seems to be hiding, and his mana control is really good. It's good to know he's an adventurer as well, thinks Marileona. So soon everyone would make it to the top and they would relax in the hot springs, and Asta would then explain how he became a senior magic knight. And he also explains him being an A-rank adventurer now. And this only motivates Yuno even more, and it also makes Fergolion cautious of his power a bit. Now, Noelle also asked about her mother from Marileona, and Lichita explained from her point of view how her son's powers work. Now, after relaxing at the hot springs for a while, this would conclude their training, and after this, the selection of the Magic Knights exams begin. After a few days later, everyone would gather up at the same Coliseum where the Magic Knights entrance exams took place, and Julius would welcome them all, introducing this year's #1 newcomer, who is Asta, and this already sets a lot of eyes on him. Asta would then think, "With my sense that now being so high, I know for sure these guys are jealous. I can literally feel Julius's obsession. It's so weird." Everyone would then be getting excited, even though, some of them mostly want to beat Asta. Some of them are just in a competitive spirit. Yuno would then approach Asta, as with all the Black Bulls and Klaus as well, Mimosa, and they just start talking with everyone settling in and tell Asta that today they're going to be taking the spotlight. You ain't going to win forever. Asta would then say, "I wouldn't have it any other way." "You bastard, you're supposed to feel threatened," says Magna. Everyone would then laugh at this, as this is when the king once again steps out, not Julius, being really annoying, but he also explains the test that they're about to start with. So, with the help of Julius, he would explain the test, and after explaining everything, Marx uses his magic to put up a board showing the teams fighting against each other. "Oh, Mimosa and I are on the same team, but who's this Zerx Rugner?" thinks Asta. He then wonders who this is when he senses a new person arriving, and a red-haired man would just jump down, appearing by Julius, putting his arm over him, acting all buddy-buddy. This would piss off a lot of Magic Knights, and Marx would go to attack him, and he dodges, landing into the crowd. "Who the hell are you to disrespect the Wizard King?" says someone in the crowd. "I'm Zerx Rugner. Nice to meet you all, and to be honest, I don't have a shred of respect for him, so don't push your values on me." Asta would then step out of the crowd saying, "Oh, then you're on our team. How goes it?" Zerx would then just look into Asta's eyes, and putting on his magic robe, he then walked over to him and shook his hand. And when they stopped shaking hands, Asta would smile, already knowing what Zerx is trying to do. But as he opens his hands and he sees the fly that's supposed to be messing with him, it's unmoving. How did that happen? Who is this guy? Is he a noble? He definitely looks like one, thinks Zerx. Mimosa would then run up saying hi, even though she's a bit scared of Zerx, and so teams would get paired up, and a lot of them are just nobles looking to get back at Asta, and those who are just looking to beat him because they aspire to beat him. So as the teams head out onto the stage for the Crystal Destruction Battle Tournament or whatever, the battles would commence. So Team B, being Asta, Mimosa, and Zerx, would be up against Team A, Rig, Forte, and Cardis. "Let the battle begin," yells the king. Now, as he says this, a magic attack would go for the crystal when Asta appears in front of the crystal, slapping it to the side. A little bit hasty, aren't you, says Asta. Wow, Asta just hit magic with his bare hands, thinks Mimosa. Asta would then start floating with his gravity magic and surprising those who were watching as he just points at the other team and a crack echoes as Team A looks behind to see that their crystal has been destroyed. I saw him at the training camp, but to think he'd be this strong, says Forte. Forte is part of the Crimson Knights. Julius would then be on the edge of his seat, saying, he's gotten stronger once again. Asta would then land down, saying, I guess we're done for now. Xerxes, get off your ass. Hey, don't get high, and Asta would then cut him off, releasing Bloodlust as he says, get up. He would then do so instinctively, being so nervous that his feet are actually shaking, and he wonders who the hell is this guy and what the hell is up with him. They would then head back to the next fight, to just wait as the next fight goes with Magna, Sol, and Kirsch going next. Kirsch is Mimosa's big brother. Now, as you see, Team C goes against Team D. This is where Magna shows off his ability to make traps, and this combined with everyone else would crush the other team easily. Now, as they win, Sol has a bit more respect for Magna, but Kirsch just keeps being himself, but he does admit that his tactics were beautiful. Now, when they return back to everyone, this is when Kirsch and Mimosa start fighting, and he then turns to notice Asta looking up into the sky, just like, just up into the sky, and he thinks, too beautiful. Now, Mimosa would then blush agreeing with him, but she says nothing, and then the next fight comes up with Fenrir being on Team E, going up against Team F. This is a huge moment, as when the fight starts, he activates an item, the item that Asta gave him. He runs ahead with this team catching up with their magic, and they easily take care of the other two teammates. Now, as they're chasing the last person who's protecting the crystal, this is when the mage would hear a crack as a punch lands in his face, and it was Fenrir who did this, breaking through the crystal and also punching him in the face. Fernand's team would then stop as Leopold is impressed. Wow, why don't you fight like that more often? Asks Leopold. I don't know, says Fernand. He would then hold his fist in pain because that was crystal and he hit it with his hands. Even if he does have a bit of super strength now, it still hurts. But of course he is very happy that he's finally stepping up and, stepping out of his comfort zone. So his team wins. Now Langris, who saw this, would be pissed. There is no way that's my brother. He would then actually be up next on Team C fighting against Team H. I hope I'm getting these teams right. He would then dominate the battle and then walk up to his big brother saying that he was going to crush him. However, Fenrir doesn't even flinch as he smiles, hitting his chest as he says, I couldn't care less, feel free to bring it on. Langris would then be a bit more mad but welcomes this challenge as he believes that no one like Fenrir can beat him. Now as Asta sees this, he does not interfere because he's happy that Fenrir is finally stepping up and it's not his place to, get in their family quarrels unless it actually directly affects him. Now however, this is when he sees Langris just stare him down, which interests him as he thinks, let's see what you do next, Langris. So the fifth match would begin with the captain of the Awkward Deer actually being in one of them. And then after everyone settles in and, takes this in and actually accept him being part of the battles, Asta meets his butler and he would be offered tea, which he drinks, and it was delicious. Julius would also allow him to, fight because you can't deny Dill. He's an adorable little fella, so why not? So he completely dominates, and then the sixth match is up with Luck, Klaus, and Polly fighting team members of the Silver Eagles. But even with their team being like high rank or whatever the hell, with the help of everyone, this is when Luck's magic and fighting ability really shines through, and they win way faster, shocking everyone. Then it is Noelle, Yuno, and then Onregard from the Green Mantis, who looks like he's about to barf every time he talks. And they're fighting, Solid. But this time when she meets Solid, she's way more calm. Damn it, just because of that commenter, she thinks she's better than me, thinks Solid. The vice captain is, from the Golden Dawn is also on the same team as Solid, and he's also looking forward to beating Yuno because he's jealous. The third member doesn't matter. So when the fight starts, instantly Yuno and Noelle are being targeted, and actually Solid is carrying the crystal if I'm not wrong. So as the vice captain starts attacking, he creates a giant night golem made of sand, and Solid is just launching water spears at Noelle because it's kind of his thing. And Onregard would support and mock Solid. He would support Noelle and mock Solid for being a horrible brother. And instantly, she pulls out the water dragon, which is way bigger than before, and she obliterates Solid. Meanwhile, Yuno creates a tornado inside of the vice captain's sand golem and destroys it immediately, just shocking everyone. Whatever issues you have don't matter to me. There's someone way stronger I'm trying to beat in this exam, says Yuno. And after hitting Solid with her attack, Noelle also breaks the crystal he was protecting, making them win. These matches would break the vice captain and Solid as they get taken away for their injuries, and this time Yuno actually hurts him a lot. And Yuno would come face to face with Asta. Now that was monumental, says Asta. They would then smile at each other, with Charmy kind of passing out, seeing, two hot boys so close to each other. It's like a freaking BL or some crap. And then it was time for Asta's team once again. They would be facing Sol, Magna, and Kirsch. However, the field would change a bit more, and this time it excites Asta. Now, as the match begins, Kirsch fills the entire area with Sakura. Sakura's, it's like pink blossoms or whatever. And he also creates Sakura clones. However, Asta would use a new spell, as using gravity magic, he blows away all the Sakura specifically. You better think of something new, yells Asta, and then starts rushing forward, as Sol is thinking, who the hell is this guy? However, as she asks this, Asta is already nearing them, with Zerus and Mimosa following behind. He would then take out Baruka's dagger as he passes by a shocked Kirsch, cutting him and paralyzing him as he moves on. The king would then ask what Asta just did. That is confidential, I'm afraid, answers Julius. This would piss off the king, but he really does want to know about what Asta just used. Asta would then step on the ground, and when he's running, and a fire geyser would just shoot out, but he would appear past Magna, slashing and paralyzing him as well. Then he would punch the crystal, breaking it in one punch, with Sol not being able to stop him. He would then look back at Mimosa and Zerus, who would arrive exhausted, as Zerus would say, "You regular bastard, would you slow down?" Asta then apologizes for that, and so that match is ended, and at this point, everyone is just scared of Asta because I can't really describe how he used the gravity magic to blow away the Sakuras. If I could draw it, I would. He destroyed everything within like a mile radius. It would be crazy if he actually had magic, like that gravity magic I'm giving him now. You'll get the point. He's fucking scary. His use of magic is just, he doesn't even look exhausted. That's what scares them most. Everyone would then be murmuring, he's like a magic knight captain. Yeah, it's true. How the hell is he a mage? His punches look really painful. And then next up would be Finral's team versus Langris's, and things go as in the original. However, this time Finral does not only help the team, but also combats Langris as well, and they go back and forth for a while, and he would actually land multiple punches on Langris, and even teleport Seke away using his new technique even more efficiently this time. However, Finral is mostly relying on his bracelet, and in the end he does not win, and he ends up on the ground battered, but he's less hurt this time. Now when Langris does go a little crazy, this time he's not showing off that demonic aura because I don't really see the point of showing that in, but he does go a little crazy. But before Langris goes too far and tries to kill his brother, in an instant he is surrounded by Black Bull members who threaten to kill him. However, Asta actually goes along with it and grabs Langris by the neck, cursing him and locking his magic. He'd be trying to activate it, thinking, how is this possible? He would then be hit in the face and then hit again and again and again and again until Asta throws him on the ground, crushing him with his gravity magic. Magna would then yell, Asta, stop, Finral wouldn't want this. However, Asta doesn't stop, and he just senses something and he just disappears as an orb of blue color appears, and he was supposed to be trapped by Julius's magic, but he actually avoided it very easily. And he would just reappear somewhere else and appear a few feet away. Julius and the medics would then appear on the scene as some start healing Finral. Why did you stop me? Asked Asta. Because you don't want to act like him, do you? Besides, you're letting out a lot of bloodlust, which is affecting the participants, including myself. Asta then notices everyone shaking a little bit as he calms down, walking over to Langris and forcefully feeding him a potion. This would instantly heal him as he gets up, saying, a high-level potion? Where did you get that? He then looks up to see Asta shrouded in shadow as he looks back at Langris, saying, next time you make a blunder like that, your head goes flying, and even he won't be able to save you. Be glad your brother is far more kind than you are. Saying this, Asta points at Julius, who's slightly sweating, and he leaves, and the other Black Bulls calm him down, saying that Finral's going to be fine, because at this point, everyone at the Black Bulls know that when someone Asta cares about gets hurt, or is about to get hurt, he loses himself a lot. So, it's like another person goes at the wheel, and he's just gone. I might be called the Wizard King, but this kid, he's something else. He just dodged my attack. That hasn't happened since. He would then remember fighting Licht as we then moved on to the other matches. Ultimately, Luck's team would lose to the Awkward Deer, and then Asta's team would destroy the Awkward Deer, using Tusk, uses Heim of Gigantification, and a bunch of other spells, having just leaving no room for Asta's teammates to do much in this battle. And then it comes to the match of Yuno's team against Asta's. Now when Asta beats Dill, it was a huge deal because he did it with ease, and he doesn't even look tired, which cemented that he was at the level of a Magic Knight captain. Now as the fight starts, both Asta and Yuno fly up, away from their team. Now it's your time, you two. Show them what you're made of, says Asta. Don't order me around, yells Zerus. He and Mimosa would then finally have a real battle as the two teams close in, and we go up to Asta and Yuno in the sky as the amount of magic density surrounding them is so great that it's causing sparks. This is what I live for, thinks Julius. Yuno would then say, so, you've gotten even stronger. But you still won't beat Yuno, yells Belle, you weirdo, because he's way stronger than you now. Is that so, says Asta. Well, come on, show me what you're made of. Yuno would then enter a spirit dive form as Asta is covered just with shadows, and they rush at each other with Yuno creating a sword of wind. And as Asta brings out Rasaka's fang, they would clash, and there was a huge and great thump heard as all the attention is just diverted to them. The boys would just keep going back and forth, smiling as if it had been so long since they actually fought. They haven't fought in a while. However, when it comes to fighting, Asta easily outclasses Yuno, as even with the protection of Belle, he appears. Asta appears above Yuno and just slams a punch straight down his head, sending him cratering into the ground. Sorry about the mumbling and the stuttering. I know you guys don't like that shit. I don't like it either. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Anyway, as this happens, this is when Noelle unveils her Valkyrie armor and surprises everyone. And Asta would land, being so proud because he actually helped her attain that form. But he has no time to think as a ray is sent at him and he blocks it with his gravity barrier. That's new. Now let me show you what I just made up. He makes his blade disappear and he gets in a punching stance. Yuno would then feel his magic rise through the roof as he's practically paralyzed by it, and so is everyone else. Yuno still manages to shoot a massive ray, the most massive ray he can at Asta. However, everyone then sees this dome of purple just cover him and Yuno as Asta whispers, Mana Zone. Pinpoint. Asta would then punch forward, splitting Yuno's ray as Yuno just gets hit in the stomach so hard that he's sent flying across the field and crashes into a mountain and through it. At the same time, Xerx would have just shattered a crystal by finally reflecting an attack, which no one expected because he hasn't shown his magic up to this point. So with this, Asta's team would win as Julius quickly teleports the medics to, help be fixed up. What he just used, says Julius. That was definitely. We then go to Asta as he looks at his hand and it's steaming like hell, like he just he just punched too hard. I might have gone too far, says Asta. I almost pulled out the white flame. I would have actually killed him. But I can't afford to go easy on my rival after all. Now, after the match is over, Asta visits Yuno at the hospital, and as he enters, he sees a doctor working his magic. This doctor would be Owen. Asta would then say, hey. Belle would then get mad, rushing at Asta and hitting him, only for Asta to just feel nothing. It feels like little taps to him, but he does find it adorable. Why would you hurt him? He's your best friend or whatever, right? What's wrong with you, yells Belle. Yuno would then say, stop it. I'm glad he took me seriously. How can I be the Wizard King if I can't even beat him? Owen, who was the healer, would then say, well, you certainly did a number on him. His internal organs and bones are completely messed up. He can't really move. Don't apologize, Asta. Besides, don't you have one of those potions or something? Potion? Only nobles have the high-grade one, says Owen. Asta would then pull out a red potion, shocking Owen as he asks Asta if he can expect it. Asta then lets him as he says that according to the dungeon lore, red potions are something so rare that if you have one, it means that you're set for life, because it's a lot of money and it can heal any wound. What? That cost me like 3,000 in the store. Maybe I should start a business. Are you sure you want to use this? Asked Owen. Asta would then say, I have a bunch more, don't worry. Owen would then be shocked to hear this, and he feeds the potion to Yuno, who would then get not only better, but he also gains a bit more magic as he stands up feeling better than ever. See you in our next match then, buddy, says Asta, and then he disappears, leaving the room as Belle is just checking on Yuno, and Owen would then say that Asta is really mysterious for a kid. To me, he's still the same old Asta, just a little cooler, thinks Yuno. So a few days would pass as we see Asta just sitting down cross-legged as he's reading a newspaper next to Yami, who was sitting exactly like him. They look so similar, it's scary, says Magna. Magna would say this to Luck as he and him would then just laugh, and like them, everyone else in the Black Bulls is just chilling, doing their own thing, when a blast would just burst through their door, and in walks Marileona. Hey, whereas she would then be cut off by Asta, who puts bloodlust on her, saying, is that the only way you know how to enter a room, lady? That's Miss Marileona to you, you little shit. She would then be pinned down by gravity, unable to do anything, and everyone just backs away slowly, as Yami is just chuckling, saying, you should have just apologized, the kid hates being bothered. Asta would then start walking towards her as he holds her up, and for some reason, she just can't use her magic. This isn't your house, you can't just waltz in and out whenever you feel like it. You got it? You got it? Yes! Now let me down, you're crushing my spine, says Marileona. Asta would then do so as she stands up, cracking her, breaking and cracking her back in, and she's not an immature person, so she's not gonna start a fight, and she apologizes, so. Asta would then ask why she's here. We're gonna storm a dungeon, says Marileona. A dungeon? Awesome, says Luck. I haven't done many quests lately.
Well, don't get too excited. This is an important matter that concerns a bunch more squads, not just yours. By the way, says Mereoleona, they all passed the exams. So this has to do with the Eye of the Midnight Sun, right? Asked Asta. As he asked this, we then cut to a few hours later, when Mereoleona would have gathered up everyone who had passed, which was almost everyone. Alright, today the Eye of the Midnight Sun will end. Show no fear, you hear me? I get that, says Asta, but why am I up here with you? Fuegoleon, who was by Mereoleona, would then say, we determined that you're too powerful to stay as just another magic knight, so you're sort of a captain, an honorary one in one way. As he says this, Mereoleona would then shoot a fireball up as Xerxes drops down, absorbing it while wearing a black bull's robe, confusing all the current black bulls, like, obviously. And Asta gets over it really fast because it doesn't really matter to him. And he just tells him to get in line with everyone, and Xerxes actually listens. Now, as they start moving out, Asta would hear Yuno ask him to stop, as he then says, so, you're Mr. Big Shot now, are you? I guess so, responds Asta. The two would then smile at each other and then move out as they go, and Mereoleona would then bring the king in, who still has a little moment before disappearing, and then a mage from the Silver Eagles would make a replica of the dungeon they're heading to. The dungeon is a grand magic zone, which also makes it extra hard. So splitting into teams is what they decide to do before entering the dungeon, and Asta goes with Xerxes and Mereoleona. Now as they break into the dungeon, Asta's team would break through to find 3 mages waiting for them. Asta would put his hand out as a pulse of mana fills the tunnels they're standing in, and the mages in the front would just burst to pieces as he starts moving forward without a worry. Mereoleona would then pass him at high speeds, telling him to keep up, and he does as Xerxes tries to as well. Now every team is doing what is necessary to keep moving forward, and as they keep moving forward, Mereoleona is going crazy, beating up mage after mage, even though she's not enraged by Fuegoleon being hurt this time. And she's just going psycho. Soon they would stop, and this is when all of a sudden everyone notices there's 2 Astas. Asta would then look at his double and force bloodlust on it, making it dissipate as it jumps back, revealing to be Raya. Jesus, kid. Raya's forehead would then flare as an eye appears on it, giving him a huge boost in magic. You're not going anywhere. Asta would then grab Xerxes and start running away as Raya tries to catch them, but Mereoleona gets in his way. Good thinking, kid. I got this guy all to myself. Now Raya and Mereoleona would fight as Asta increases speed, disappearing from sight, and Raya would say, damn it. Well, it should be fine. The plan is still in motion. You can't solve everything with pure strength, kid. Little did Raya know, however, Asta and Mereoleona are very alike in the way that they are both just pure forces of nature, and he was about to find out what it was like to fight one of them. Now, as they keep moving towards this weird mana, both Xerxes and Asta, as they keep moving forward, Asta would say, they should be fighting right about now. Unfortunately for them, I kept one of the stones in my inventory. He would then head straight forward as we cut to the entire Covert Kingdom being saved by Julius, as he's using a giant magic circle to stop the attack of light arrows on the kingdom. Now as he does this, Licht moves as fast as possible, going to ram a sword in his gut, when his blade made of light is just cut to nothing. Flying still, he would fall back looking at his hands, which were also just bleeding, and this is when Yami would land nearby. He, including Julius and Licht, would then see an insectoid creature come out of Julius' shadow. That kid, you just can't help yourself, says Yami, being relieved. And Bear would flap his wings as he appears right in front of Licht, cutting his cheek and making him create a bunch of light spears that he instantly launches at Beru. Beru, however, would backhand the light spears away with ease. My lord has not allowed me to kill you yet. It seems I must separate you from this human immediately. Licht would then yell, we're bound to one another. You think a bug like you can interfere with destiny, with fate? Beru would then chuckle. He starts flying closer and closer. Meanwhile, Licht just keep trying to kill him or whatever. But he's just dispersing his attacks with ease, every single one of them. Now, as he got close, Licht would then be clawed. But while Beru did this, he also ripped out vengeance out of him, and Yami just caught him. So essentially, Licht is now back to a single entity once again. How is this possible, wondered Licht. It's a simple matter of entangling the magic that binds you together, and then, poof. No matter what you do in the end, you will meet your end, elf. What? How does he know that? Damn it, says Licht. You would then disappear using an emergency teleporting device, and this is when Vengeance would just wake up. Well, barely. Barry would then fly over to Julius and give him a high rank magic recovery potion, which is usually the color blue, but this one is clear. Now as Julius drinks it, he regains all of his magic and he hears the cheers of the kingdom, but then he realizes that the stones that he had been keeping safe were taken. Worry not, human, my lord has the last stone needed, says Bearer. It would then turn into a shadow and dissipate, returning to Asta's collection. We then zoom in on Asta as Xerxes would reflect Mereoleona's attack, destroying a wall in front of them. They would then sense a lot of mana in their area, as in front of them they would see the real Licht suspended in air. What the hell is this? Asked Xerxes. Now, as he asked this, the Golden Dawn containing Yuno, the Golden Dawn team containing Yuno, Mimosa, and Klaus, well, not really the Golden Dawn team, and Haman. Haman is from another team, am I right? I don't know. So they would arrive and see this as well. Hey guys, find anything to suggest what this might be? Asked Asta. Klaus would then say, unfortunately, we have simply been attacked by the Eye of the Midnight Sun, and they tried to stop us from advancing forward. We then cut to Licht putting the stones that he found on at the tablet, just into it, but unfortunately he's missing one. Damn it! Where could it be? Maybe those 3 humans know, but they'll probably be heavily guarded. And that monster, they knew of us. Damn it, what is going on? Who is that kid? Now, as Licht was wondering this, we cut back to the band of now deemed royal knights as something crashes in front of them, leaving a huge dust cloud in front of them. Out of this dust cloud would walk out Veto with his third eye activated. What the hell are you humans doing here? Oh, it's you again. Asta would then playfully wave at him as he gets serious, forcing Veto down. This isn't possible. I should be at least 100 times stronger. Asta then holds him up, asking what their plans is. However, Veto would laugh, saying he would never betray his own. Oh, I know you won't, but you should if you don't want to test my patience. Everyone that feels Asta's mana just rises. He uses the bloodlust skill to force it on Veto, and Veto starts to resist it. And since this is the first time Asta has actually seen this happen, he gets interested as he just pushes even more bloodlust onto him, and this is when he would get a notification. Player skill Bloodlust has reached max level. You have gained a new skill, Law. Those weaker compared to you will listen to your commands no matter what they may be. Currently, player can only make enemies say whatever he wishes. Asta would see this and just be shocked, and he then looks at Veto and sees that he's actually foaming at the mouth and is out cold, and he went too far. What did he do? Asked Haman. Yuno would then say he can force his will onto others, making them submit, but he seems that he went too far. Asta would then drop Veto, scratching his head in embarrassment, and Mimosa would then think that's so cute, but she can't think about that right now. Asta would then yell Kaizo as a dragon would jump out of his shadow, growling as Asta pets, telling it to stay on guard and guard whoever this person is, whatever or whoever he may be. So Kaizo would listen to him as the group wondered what they were gonna do now that they found really nothing, and Asta would reach his hand in the inventory, taking out the last magic stone needed for the Eye of the Midnight Sun. Whatever these guys are doing, they need this to complete it. Weren't those things supposed to stay with the Wizard King? Asked Haman. Asta would then say, well, the Wizard King lost the others. There's a reason why these people all of a sudden got an increase in power. He then puts the stones back in, but just as he does, he puts up a barrier as well, blocking a ton of light spears which were about to be shot at everyone. Everyone then looks to see an enraged Paltry, no longer calling him Licht because we know that's not true anymore. And he would say, so it was you after all. Filthy human, know your place. He then thinks he has a spatula item. Either way, he's gonna ruin the whole plan. Now as he thinks this, Asta appears behind him while flying, and in an instant his stomach would have a huge hole in it, just from Asta's dagger blow. I'm so glad he's on our side, says Klaus while pushing up his glasses. This time Asta doesn't hold back as he starts using Vital Strike over and over and over again, and Licht will be trying to dodge, but not only can he not heal right now, his organs just keep getting pinpointed and destroyed every single time. Now by this point, Licht would look like a freaking ragdoll as Asta points at him, activating his white flame skill. Now using his gravity magic, he then focuses the flame instead of just spreading it, and he lights Paltry on fire without burning his own clothes. He would then fall to the ground screaming in pain as Asta lands down, telling everyone to stay away from him because if they touch the fire, they will die. No, this isn't how. This is how it's supposed to go. Wait, it doesn't hurt anymore? What is this? I don't want... Paltry would then die as Asta also lights Veto on fire, surprising everyone as they didn't know he had fire magic as well. The flame is so pure and white, thinks Yuno. Veto and Paltry would then waste away, and as he does this, Merleona would have just killed Raya because he did not get the extra power up. Everything would then be going pretty well, and Asta gets a notification. The player will transform. It is time for the Monarch to revive. All of a sudden, Asta would then burst with magic as his eyes go completely purple, and he starts floating in the air. This burst of magic would push everyone back as it also dissipates Licht to nothing, leaving him suspended in the air where Licht once was. Mimosa would then ask, "What's wrong, Asta?" As she says this, a giant portal would just appear above everyone, a huge purple portal that cuts off the top half of the current dungeon they're in. "It's a dungeon break," yells Yuno. Now out of the portal would then come a figure purely black, and this person describes himself as Zagrid, a demon, shocking everyone. Zagrid then looks to Asta floating in the air. "It's almost time. Soon our true lord, our leader, will arise, but for now I guess I get to have a little fun with you humans." Everyone in the dungeon and the entire kingdom would then feel this domineering power of this so-called demon. So we then switch to Lichita as she's home picking up some food from the orphanage. Now she's going back home, being a weak mage, but a mage nonetheless, she feels this energy. Asta, she says. We then cut to Asta actually opening his eyes, asking, what's going on? He would then stand up and wipe his eyes and look forward to see a war. A war with multiple races he can't even describe. Asta would then turn back, feeling this familiar energy, and he looks up to see the demon Monarch. And this person looks at him. Who are you? Asks Asta. I'm the Monarch Asmodeus. Walk with me. Asta would then follow Asmodeus, even though he doesn't know him, but he just feels like this sort of kinship with him. Asmodeus and him would then walk through the war in front, but then as soon he realizes it's all an illusion, it's not real. Now as they keep going through the illusion, soon it all disappears, and Asta notices it, freaking out as he asks, what is going on? What are you? Are you the system? Asmodeus would then turn around chuckling, saying, I am not, but I did make it. Asta would then be asking why, waiting in suspense, when Asmodeus would then only answer that he was just tired of everything. He would then explain that he is indeed the king of demons, and he has multiple powers. The white flame that Asta inherited is essentially the heart of the demon realm. It is the single most powerful thing ever to exist on this planet, and he used to be able to harness its power. If I'm getting this right, that I'm replacing you? I'm the new demon king, yelled Asta. Asmodeus would then laugh, saying, indeed, and then puts his hand on Asta's shoulder, saying, taking my place does not mean you have to be ruthless. I wasn't, but all of this happened. But this is your role, whether or not you like it. You were chosen. What is this, some destiny thing? Asked Asta. Asmodeus would then say, what? No, it was by accident. The system constructs a dungeon that pops up everywhere. You just happened to fall into it. Matter of fact, do you remember this place? The battlefield will then transform into the dungeon where he got his powers, and Asta looks around, but he doesn't see that giant statue that freaked him out. However, Asmodeus would then say that he is the statue. In his prime, Asmodeus was essentially a god, so he left a little bit of himself behind to help the player, just like a little piece of his soul everywhere. And the demon Monarch would then touch Asta's chest as he starts to dissipate, but before he disappears, he whispers something to Asta. As this happens, Asta would then open his eyes with purple energy flowing out of him when he sees Yuno being just like, a badass, leading everyone like against the charge against the demon. Now as Zagred blows back the mages, he would then look up to see Asta has awoken. Every mage including, every mage including the Black Bulls, Crimson Lions, Silver Eagles, Praying Mantises would be there as well as Mereoleona, and they had been fighting Zagred for about 2 hours now, straight, 2 hours straight. Now as for Asta, he would be thinking, I feel so calm. Man, they destroyed the dungeon just for one demon? You would then see Zagred fly up to him as he bows. My lord, I assume you have returned. Asta, is that you? Asta, yells Yuno. Asta then says nothing, however, as he tells Zagred to stop bowing, and he starts to float down as he sees the battered mages when he lands. Asta, please tell us it's you, asked Noelle. Everyone in the crowd felt Asta's ominous magic and felt the need to attack. However, Yuno moved forward without fear, as even Belle told him not to. Asta, say something. Your friend is gone. There's only destruction waiting. Zagred would then be cut off by Asta laughing, confusing everyone as he then says, you guys look so scared. You really thought I'd kill you. Yuno would then sigh in relief as with everyone, and he smacks Asta on the head, calling him an idiot. How is this possible? Wonders Zagred. Asta would then turn around and look at Zagred, and in an instant he is cut to pieces, and this includes his heart. Because I would never hurt my comrade, says Asta. Asta then lifts his hand, pointing it at the portal as it shatters and it implodes on itself. Player has gained the Black Heart and is the true Demon Monarch, says the system. Shadow abilities have evolved. New skill, Command. The Monarch has now gained control over all demons in the demon realm and can control portals to the dungeon and create portals to anywhere. Asta would then see this pop up and a bunch of other skills evolve, like his Vital Strike and his Curse skill, but right now his body is not actually able to use it. He does have the Black Heart like Jin does right now, but he hasn't gotten used to it. But the system is made for that. Soon Asta will be able to use all of his skills and he will essentially be a god. Now as Asta stops the dungeon, he then sighs as everyone looks at him in shock. The captains would then step up out of the crowd and stand in front of Asta, shielding him. You may not mention what you have seen today, says Noelle. We have seen something that defies the very logic of our world. Do not let anyone hear about this until we or the Wizard King allow it. Asta would then say, probably good idea. He then thinks that's good because they definitely wouldn't want to know that I just closed a bunch of rogue dungeons. This would mean that there is no army of elves rampaging through the kingdom, but some citizens did go a little insane as they almost hurt their loved ones, but Asta stopped it in time. This is a side effect of not being used to the dungeon energy, and if you're not an adventurer, you're not used to that energy just hitting you, so some people lost their minds. Now, hours would pass as we find Asta in the room where the feast for the Magic Night ceremony was held. However, this time the captains and Julius were lined up in front of Asta and were about to question him. You give us a pretty big scare there, Asta, says Fuegoleon. What happened to you? I can't tell you that, says Asta. Are you refusing an order from a Magic Knight captain, yelled Noelle. Are you aggravating someone who's beaten you once and also saved your life? Noelle would then be stunted as Yami chuckles a bit. The captain of the Coral Peacocks, who for once was fucking awake, she would then ask what that strange energy leaking out of him is and why his eyes are purple. I can't tell you that either, says Asta. Look, even if I told you, trust me, you would wish I didn't. I'm sure you're just over-exaggerating, says Julius. Oh, really? Would you be comfortable if I had told you that I'm like one of the monsters that your Magic Knights fight every day and put down, says Asta. What the hell is that supposed to mean, you weirdo? Don't think you're special just because. Jack would then be caught up by Noelle, who would then say that Asta forcefully closed the dungeon just by waving his hand, and this shocked everyone, as Noelle and the others hadn't told, the other captains what happened, so they didn't know yet. Asta would then say, just pretend like nothing happened. Explaining this to the public wouldn't exactly make things easier for you. For example, where's Vengeance? They would then all get quiet, realizing what he means, and right now Vengeance is still out cold, but also he's kind of like Traitor because he did allow Licht to take over his body, so they're gonna have to question him later, so this is all very confusing, but it kind of proves Asta's point. Then there's just too much to explain to everyone. Yami would then walk up to Asta. I just have one question. Are you our enemy? Of course not. If I wanted to kill you, you would all be bleeding internally and dying out on the floor. Oh, okay, too much detail, but that's all I need. Asta's in my squad, so I'll take responsibility for what happens next. Julius would then say fine, because I believe you're our comrade. Despite me ruining what could have been your quiet life, you still dealt with my antics. He would then scratch his head with everyone being embarrassed and wondering what the hell he pulled. So Asta and Yami will return to the Black Bull's hideout as when they entered, instantly everyone just dogpiles Asta, wondering where like the hell he was. Sorry, I'm back. I'm happy that you guys aren't weirded out. He would then get off him as he dusts himself off. Noelle would then say, what you did was pretty impressive, but I'm royalty. I have to keep integrity and nobility in moments like that. Luck would then say, if anything, it just makes me want to fight you even more. Asta would then be happy that nothing much has changed, as Stormy would then jump on him, snuggling him just because she could. However, Asta would then remember something as he asked if he can just go up to his room for a bit. Stormy would then get off as they say sure, and as soon as Asta leaves, everyone in the room would drop to the ground. Doesn't he realize how much mana he's oozing out, says Magna. Gauche would then say, I felt like my entire body was screaming at me to get away from him. Gordon would then say, his mana actually has the same type of feeling that my family's hex magic does. I feel like he's gotten way better looking, says Charmy. Vanessa would then yell at her, telling her that's what you noticed. That's all you noticed. Seriously? Everyone would then look at Yami, wondering how he's doing, and he seems to be doing fine for some reason, but it is Yami. Also, it's because of his dark magic. So as Asta leaves, he goes and finds Henry. Now, as he's at his door, he would ask the system why Henry can't take magic from him. His curse originates from the Monarch himself. Asta is shocked to hear this, but the system also clarifies that all demons associated with the Monarch, which is every demon because the demons were made by the Monarch, when they affect humans with things like curses or the curse weg, it directly relates to him because, he made them, so their energies are kind of linked. But he can choose to release the curse whenever he wants. Now, reading this, he will be very happy as he gets ready to go in. Wait, is the system growing as well? Thinks Asta. He would then disregard this thought as he would then enter the room. Hey, Asta, says Henry. Now, as Henry says this, we cut back to the other Black Bulls when they would start to hear footsteps of two people and they're finally up on their feet. They're feeling a little better. And they would get on guard when out comes Asta with the man with the long blue hair. And Asta's just kind of helping him walk. Hello guys, this is Henry. Yami would then stand up in a bit of a panic, but he then notices that he's not being sapped of mana. What did you do? I removed his curse. Everyone would then approach Henry as he speaks normally, and he's part of the Black Bulls, but his disability has been holding him back, and that's what Yami says. But now he can officially become a Black Bull again. Now, as the others are getting to know Henry, Asta's eyes would then shine as he realizes that he has a little something to do. He goes outside and opens a portal and will walk through as he arrives to a certain area, all too familiar, and even though he literally saw the faces of his teammates saying, wait, you can fucking undo curses, you just didn't give a fuck, but he'll answer it later. This was the place he arrived at was where he showed Yuno his power for the first time ever. And he sticks his hand out as everything starts to rumble, and out of the wall next to him bursts out a grimoire that goes into Asta's hand directly. Anti-magic. Pretty interesting. Quite the adversary. Let's have a talk, shall we? He would then touch the grimoire and force Libe out of it, unsealing him, as he is then freed from the grimoire and reappears in the human world once again. I'm back. Finally! Wait, who are you? Who the hell are you? Now as Libe looked at Asta, he saw and remembered another face. Lichita? Asta would then grab the demon by the neck, saying, how do you know my mother's name? Libe is being choked by Asta, and he would then create anti-magic swords to go cut him when his swords get cut to nothing due to Asta's gravity magic. Just let me explain, please. Asta would then let Libe down, being confused as to why he even did that. I guess it's a little hard to control myself now becoming a demon king. Asta would then help up Libe, apologizing and saying that he just was agitated because his mom is the only person that he has left. Libe would be actually saddened to hear this, and he would also hear that Hugh passed. It all started a few years ago. By the time your parents met me, Lichita was pregnant. So in this timeline, Libe did come to the human world, by accident obviously, and was chased down until he was found out by Hugh this time, not Lichita, because Lichita, was pregnant. Lichita welcomed Libe and even called him part of their family, and when Libe learned that he was technically gonna have a little brother, he was amazed. However, Lucifera would attempt to take over him, and Hugh would have to take care of him, luckily barely getting hurt, but he got a lot of scars. But Libe decided that it was best if he wasn't around them anymore, and it might end up killing them all, and Asta, who still hasn't been born yet, and he doesn't want to take a life like that. However, the only place that he could hide was the grimoire that Lichita found a few days ago, and so they sealed Libe in there and hid him somewhere safe. Meaning that, Libe's time with Hugh and Lichita wasn't as long as it was in the anime for Libe and Lichita alone. So it kind of made that sad. It was a sad, bitter moment to see him go. However, when they sealed Libe, they didn't realize that this would kind of drive Libe insane. Being alone for all those years made him grow in power. So that's how he gained anti-magic. But it's not as much time as he spent, being alone in the Grimoire, in the anime. And this one is shorter. So by this point, Libe and Asta would be sitting down, and Libe says, and that's it. Libe would then see Asta crying from this story, and he would then say, well, don't worry. You can come back to our family. Mom would love to see you. This brat's really Lichita's son, huh? He then stands up saying, no. As long as those high-ranking demons live, I'll just put you all in danger. Don't worry about that. Just trust me, okay? Libe would then take a second and then nod, already feeling the huge amount of mana that Asta is actually leaking out. And so the two would decide to go to walk to Asta's home, and, it was nearby, so they could just walk and have a little talk. Now, as this happened, we go to the captain's meeting up today as Von Jones had just woken up. So much has happened in such a short time. It's good to know Asta is on our side, though. He looks like a good kid. Jack would then say, now I wish that little brat came to my squad instead. And we would then laugh, pissing off all the captains, and he just brags about Asta being by far the strongest out of all of them. That kid would even beat Nacht with ease. This is when everyone would feel a new magic signature enter the room, and this would be Nacht saying, oh, so who is this Asta? Now at the other side of the table would appear Nacht, as he had just arrived with the shadow magic. Who is this man? Asked Fergulian, being cautious, much like everyone else. Now he would then introduce Nacht as his vice captain, shocking everyone because, well, it's Yami. He keeps a lot of secrets, but didn't think that he would do this. Julius welcomed Nacht though, because he knows him, and he would be asking Nacht why he came back. Something happened. The Spade Kingdom. It's only getting worse. Nacht would then explain that, well, what the Dark Triad is, and that they took over the kingdom from the shadows, but now they're advancing their plans really fast, so he came back to ask for reinforcements. And for a while now, I've been feeling an energy pretty close to one that resembles the demons in this kingdom. It couldn't be him, right? Said Noelle. Nacht would then ask what. For now, wait for me at the base and meet the new members. I'll get there soon. I have someone special to show you, says Yami. Nacht would then lift an eyebrow to this as we cut to Lichita, Asta, and Libe in the house talking. And she doesn't mind meeting Libe again, and he looks the same as he did when they sealed him away, and he looks quite young for a demon. But he already gained his power. Lichita would then say, I'm just happy you're okay, I'm sorry. We should have never sealed you. We didn't realize we caused you so much pain, and we should have never lied to you, Asta. Libe would then say, well, I heard Hugh died. It might have been my fault. They would then ask why that is, and Libe said that maybe when Lucifera wanted to mess with Lichita after, he couldn't get his revenge and he was mad, he probably killed Hugh out of spite. The host's bodies, thinks Asta. That monster I saw killing my dad in those illusions when I got my brother. It wasn't just a monster, it was a demon. A bit of silence would then fill the room as they consider the possibility, and it makes them only madder. And just, well, not matter is not really a word. It makes them more mad. Asta then stands up saying, "Alright, you guys stay here and catch up." Beru would then come out of his shadow, keep them safe, and that includes the demon. Beru would then look at the little demon, Libe, giving Libe flashbacks of when he was stared down by other demons, and Beru actually reminds him of one of the demons that almost killed him. Do not hurt either of them, or you know what happens. Asta then starts walking out as he says this, and he closes the door as he makes a portal back to the Black Bull's hideout. When he arrives at the front, he senses and sees someone new in the house with the sense stat. "I'm back, guys," says Asta as he opens the door. He then sees everyone kneeling down in front of Nacht, who would then turn around to look at Asta. This must be Asta. His magic is monstrous. Now, as he thinks this, the three demons he's contracted would then come out of their little, come out in the little forms, whispering that this kid is definitely contracted with the devil, but he seems to be able to use 100% of his devil's power and has very high efficiency, so it's very dangerous. How is that possible? Nacht would then ask, "Are you aware of the fact that you're contracted to a demon?" The Black Wolves would be shocked to hear this because demons are rumored to only stay in dungeon, and case in point, when they had to fight Zagrid. So, yeah. Noelle would then say, "What are you asking? That Asta's been using the power of a demon this entire time?" Nacht would then nod as Asta says that if that's one way to explain it, that he's just gonna go with that. And so, that's one way to explain why he's so weird. He'd rather not reveal his true identity. So Asta would say that he recently just got to talk to his demon, and he's called Asmodeus. That's a new one, says Nacht. Never heard of him before. But you'll be useful when we go to the Spade Kingdom. Asta would then smile, thinking perfect, as soon Yami would then arrive with the decree, and they are to go to the Heart Kingdom for now, and get some info about the Spade Kingdom since they have a bit of conflict with them. And because of the existence of the demons have been revealed, there's no need to go to Gordon's home. Some Black Bulls decide to stay at the base and chill, like in the original, but some go, and Yami says, "Asta, you're leading this mission." Nacht, what do you want to do? Nacht would then decide to accompany Asta on the mission, and Frina will want to come as well, as would Noelle, and she proposes that they actually get Mimosa involved because she's been to the Heart Kingdom before. So on their way to the kingdom, they take a little boat ride, and for a while things would be tranquil, until a sort of fog started to roll in when they started going around the Heart Kingdom territory. And after the fog passed, they find themselves in the Heart Kingdom, and Asta and Nacht already sensing the really powerful mages are kind of amazed at this place. This is when Gauche lands on their boat with everyone turning around. They definitely have it. The power of demons, thinks Gauche. This is when Asta sense that signals him, and he can actually kind of read Gauche's mind. More so, he sensed what he was trying to do, his intent. And he thought that this was pretty neat, but he also thought that something was definitely about to happen that the others wouldn't like. Gauche would then show them around, and as they're nearing the castle of the kingdom, all of a sudden, Nacht and Asta will be surrounded by water, as Gauche would say, "I apologize, but we need something from you two." However, Asta would then make a fist as the water bursts off Nacht and himself. "Don't worry, we'll go ourselves. You guys have fun." Asta then starts to float and flies into the air as Nacht follows behind, with Asta keeping him up with his gravity magic. "So this is your demon's power. Or is it yours?" "I can't explain," says Asta. He and Nacht would then speed up, and they arrive somewhere to see a huge hole below them, sensing the huge amount of magic that attacked them. They would then land below as they looked around and saw a night made of water, and then more water and ice will be created. "Interesting way to grieve someone, but we don't have time for this," says Nacht. Suddenly, everything goes dark as he uses his shadow magic, and when the light reemerges, all the knights are just freaking gone and blown to nothing, except water. They're back to water form, and they're on the ground. Asta, having, enhanced senses, knew what happened and thought that Nacht was pretty dangerous as a mage. Now, as Nacht does this, they would then walk forward to see what would be a girl sleeping on a sheep. This is when she would wake up and yawn, and she realizes what's going on, and she puts on her glasses, apologizing for, the attack. And this is when the water spirit arrives, checking up on her. "Are you the queen?" asks Asta. Little Petrica would then get a closer look at Asta and blush, just like every girl. And he has only gotten better looking since that little evolution, so if you know what I mean, this is a girl's wet dream. And of course, when she does, see Asta, this is when Undine, the water spirit, teases her a little bit, and Nacht would then break the ice, saying that they really need to get down to business, and says that although this must be a sore subject, Little Petrica is definitely cursed, and he can sense it. The queen would then lift her shirt, showing the curse on her stomach, and this is when, however, Asta closes in, inspecting the mark, kind of making her a little bit nervous and embarrassed. Yeah, this was definitely Megikuda. Sadistic bastard. You know of him? Asked Undine. Little Petriga would then say, honestly, at this rate, I'll die in a year. Asta would then surprise everyone, touching her belly, as everyone then sees the mark be absorbed into Asta and thus frees her. What? What did you just do? Yelled Undine. Nacht would then be actually worried for once about Asta, as he would then check his body, thinking that he probably took the curse into his own body, which is really dangerous, because Megikuda is a pretty powerful demon in this world. Maybe called devil, but it's demon. But as he checks Asta's body, there is no mark or demonic energy, forced onto him. There's no curse. Asta, what the hell are you doing? Yelled Nacht. Asta would then say, calm down, calm down. I can destroy curses and get rid of them. It's one of my abilities. So that means... Asta would then look at little Petrica and nod, making her cry, as she then runs and hug Asta, who feels a bit awkward about it at first. However, seeing how truly happy she is, he would then hug her back, patting her on the head, because, honestly, he can't even imagine what she's gone through after all these years of dealing with a curse like that. And so he did this for a while, and Nacht talked to Undine, and soon the others would arrive, having been tested, and they would see Asta lying down with little Petrica resting in his arms. Noelle would be just flustered, saying, Asta, what are you doing? That's so rude. Shh, she's resting. By the way, she's the queen, so you probably don't want to disturb her or anything. Hearing this would kind of shock the girls, and Inferno would then think that Asta is such a lucky bastard. Now, as for little Petrica, she would soon wake up and they talk about how to take down the Dark Triad. However, as they're doing so, this is when an eerie presence fills the entire kingdom. What is this? Make it stop. I can't breathe, says Finral. Everyone then also feels this overwhelming pressure and just power, and this is when a portal would appear as the Dark Triad walks through. Megikuda would then be carried by a enslaved mage who craved her abuse, and Lucifer with the sadistic smile is always just standing there, and Zenon is pretty cool with the calming presence because he's just that type of person. Undine would then say, You! Why now? All of you get out of here, all of you! However, the pressure on them would then be relieved as Asta steps out, releasing his bloodlust, which overpowers the triads combined. Who is this man? Asked Zenon. No, he's not even a man. Who is this child? Why? So, at least one of you's got some balls, says Lucifero, cutting in. How about you and I have a little go at it, kid? Megikuda, however, would then interrupt herself as she starts raging and feeling her connection between little Petrica having been severed. And the same actually goes for Noelle, because Asta kind of noticed that as soon as he got his power, so he did it in secret. Megikuda would then yell, It's impossible for you to get rid of my curse, so how could you possibly... In an instant, Megikuda would then be lit on fire by the white flame of the underworld, and the others of the Triad recognize it. Wait, what? How is this happening? Who are you? Asked Lucifero. Nacht would then hear this from the demons, that those flames are the very thing that make the demon world what the demon world is, and it forms dungeons upon dungeons. How is this possible? Thought Nacht. Zenon would then be lit on fire as well, as he starts being wiped out completely, and he just can't put out the fire, just like Megikuda. This is seriously happening? Please tell me I'm not dreaming, says Undine. Gaja would then ask, who exactly is your friend over there? Noelle would then say he's a commoner with a lot of magic. Asta's a commoner? Asked little Petrica. Asta would then just keep walking forward, and every step he takes closer to Lucifero only makes him want to kill himself now, so he won't have to go through what comes next. How is this possible? I am the king of demons. Asta then appears next to him, saying, No, you're not. Ever heard of the name Asmodeus? Lucifero would then be wide-eyed thinking, but that's not possible. He's an ancient creature, the ultimate being. He wasn't even considered a demon king. He would then be lit on fire, whispering, he was considered a god. Now, as Asta reveals this, he also reveals that obviously he's not being possessed by Asmodeus. They don't have a contract. He is Asmodeus. This would shock Lucifero even more. So that was the Triad. Pretty weak if you ask me, says Asta. Everyone's jaws would then drop to the floor as they just can't comprehend what just happened. Guys, are you okay? Guys, come on. So with the Triad destroyed by one man, this means that the Spade Kingdom can have a chance to be back to how it was. But before that, they had to take care of the other devil-possessed henchmen. All of that. There's still a lot of work. There's always work. So after everything settled down, this means that the plans are being made to, rescue the Spade Kingdom. And about 2 days would pass when we see Yuno training, hitting a mountain with all the amount of magic he can. No, this isn't good enough. Bell, increase power. You got it. However, as he's training, Klaus would then run over to him saying that something urgent has happened. Your family's called you saying they need you to come back right away. Yuno would then thank Klaus for the info as he starts flying to Sashi Village at high speeds. Just what exactly could have happened? Now, as Yuno flies through the sky to Sashi, Nacht would then be meeting up with the captains, and he described everything that happened. This is just bonkers, says Julius. I mean, what? That's what he meant? He had a demon in him? That's why he described himself as a monster? This is a lot to take in. Yami would then say, what even are their plans for the Spade Kingdom? Or what were their plans before they got killed? Nacht would then try to explain what their plan was, and it was to open a dungeon portal, releasing all of the monsters and demons into the world so they can take over, just like the other Zeman Zagreed was trying to do. Jack would then say, hey, it's cut and dry, we just gotta go to the Spade Kingdom and kill those demon worshippers, right? Nacht would then say, that's pretty much it, and Yami would ask where Asta is. He decided to go home for a bit, says Nacht, to tell his mother and make sure that she's safe. So before the Clover Kingdom goes to the Spade Kingdom, they would then prepare a bit, and during this time is when it is revealed that Yuno is actually a noble and is the rightful heir to the Spade Kingdom's throne. Soon this would get known by everyone, and they start to wonder if Asta is also secretly a noble. However, finding out about his true inheritance doesn't really change much for Yuno. He still considers himself a part of the Clover Kingdom, but the issue stands. Who should rule over the Spade Kingdom after they're done saving it? I will answer that later. So, we're gonna cut to 3 days later, and being in disarray now that they had lost their leaders, the demons and mages of the Spade Kingdom would gather up people in a tower, and we would then see a soldier actually assaulting a woman, ripping her clothes off. Just leave us alone, yelled the woman. Now as the soldier creeps up, and he's obviously, demon possessed, the other soldiers would be laughing, and this is when a blade would be flung into the soldier's head, as the glass window in front of everyone just cracks and shatters. The demonized soldier would then fall to the ground as the young woman who was cowering in fear would then be covered by something warm, and she looks up to see Asta. It's okay, I'm here to help. She would be covered by a coat from his inventory, and one of the demon soldiers would then say, hey, who the hell are you? Get this bastard. One of the soldiers would then activate his magic, turning into a grotesque creature. You just got him by surprise. Don't expect the same with all of this man's, like everything about this man would be gone, as in an instant he is cut to pieces by the blade which was in the soldier's noggin, the one that just died. Don't act all high and mighty. My demon is stronger than yours. He would then direct the skill, now named Law, at only the demonized soldiers, and he forces all the demons to leave their host, and so now they're actually part of Asta's collection, and thus they are back in the demon world. Who is he? Asked someone from the crowd. Asta would then say, I'm a mage from the Clover Kingdom. Now be at ease, in a few moments you'll all be safe. He would then create a portal, telling them to step through it. Some were suspicious, but the girl who Asta had just saved, along with her little brother, trusted him, and they walked through it. And this would lead them to Little Pechica's room, so everyone goes into the portal and just get to safety. Now back on the other side of the portal, Little Pechica would say, to think that he was a spatula mage as well. Just what can Asta do? Now across the Spade Kingdom, Clover mages would spread out and just defeat any demon or anything that worships a demon very easily. Well, not very easily. They're actually pretty weak to their certain counterparts because they haven't had that little time skip. But they're trying to hold them off, and if they couldn't beat them, because some of them are pretty high level, then some of the mages aren't that strong, then Asta would come in with his, OP main character shit and deal the final blow. Also, he spread all his shadows everywhere to help everyone out. So as Asta keeps moving forward and just killing all demons with ease, one thought would be going through his mind. Is it just me, or is this way too easy? We then do a time skip. 10 years have passed since that day when Asta destroyed the Dark Triad, and Libe has remained in the human world after Asta proved that he was no threat to anyone, and he became part of his and Licht's family, and technically a part of the Black Bulls. Asta did also find his father's corpse, and with his powers, he was able to make him talk to his mom in a shadow form before he really passed away. Although really passed away just means that he's kind of a spirit now. In a way, Asta is kind of a godly being now, so he can always talk to him, but that's kind of limited still, because nothing is ever free or easy to get. It was a bittersweet, but it was a good moment, and Lichita, Libe, and Asta moved on, as Asta remembered something that Asmodeus told him before completely disappearing. Forward, my successor, no regrets, that's the only way. So he did, and Asta continued working for the Black Bulls until he became its captain. His rank rose from A to SS as an adventurer, which had never been reached before, and that rank was actually made specifically just to measure his power, and his nickname was the One-Man Army Mage, since he not only had shadow soldiers at his command, but he was an excellent strategist. And when Asta became the captain of the Black Bulls, Noelle went to become the captain of the Silver Eagles, actually surpassing Noelle in power with the help of Asta. The others stayed at the Black Bulls, and Noelle also kept in touch, obviously, because they're still friends. Leopold soon became the captain of the Crimson Lions, and Yuno became the captain of the Golden Dawn. That's what's up. And, eventually getting respect for, from those who hated him, because the man, he's done a lot for y'all, so you gotta respect him. And Nero also became part of the Black Bulls, as Asta brought her out of her bird form, uncursing her, and he knew that she was there all the time. Nero was just a little bit scared of Asta because of the pressure he naturally released, and she felt it the most. And after she joined, Asta also gave her the gift of letting her see her prince for one final time, and they talked for a bit until he disappeared. Jack still stayed as the captain of the Green Mantises, and so did Dill because he was a pretty young captain. And the captain of the Coral Peacocks stays the same. I hope I got that guild name right, or whatever the hell. So as for the Spade Kingdom, Little Petrica took over it, becoming its leader, and Yuno allowed it. So now she ruled both the Heart and Spade Kingdom, and eventually everyone just came to like her. So Sol became the captain of the Blue Roses, sorry about that. And Charlotte finally got Yami's attention, and they actually became a couple. Also, a few years forward, dungeons just became, kind of sterile. They stopped getting out of control. They were still, dangerous, but they stopped getting out of control. No dungeon breaks, no red gates, none of that. Instead, Asta would work in secret to make dungeons where people would keep fighting monsters so they could, keep earning money. Essentially, he was the dungeon master, everywhere in the world, and every dungeon was at his command because he's the fucking Demon King. Now, as for the problem of the Diamond Kingdom, Asta took care of them, of their, their fucking arrogant leader, with an army of demon giants that he made, literally made out of nowhere. He has creation powers now, but only with shadows. He can do much more, but I don't have time to explain that. Leave the rest to your imagination, And after taking care of the messed up world that is the freaking Diamond Kingdom, he put Mars as its king and Fauna as his queen. And this means that Kruger is no longer banished, but he chooses to, stay where he is because he likes being free. He likes that kind of lifestyle. So we're gonna go back to the Clover Kingdom. Preparations are being made for the entrance exams once again. New mages would enter the Colosseum looking around and seeing other participants. Hey look, it's them! It's the Magic Knight Captains! Out would step out the captains of the Black Bulls, Golden Dawn, Silver Eagles, Crimson Lions, Praying Mantis, and Coral Peacocks, and that's about it. Now as the others sit down, Asta would stay up straight saying, "Welcome all of you. It's him! That's the One-Man Army Mage. I heard he's a fire mage and has gravity magic, and some shadow magic. That's super rare. Isn't he stronger than the Wizard King?" Asta would then say, now, calm down. Ladies and gentlemen, future mages, this is the beginning of your new lives, but not all of you will make it, but don't worry. You'll all get an equal opportunity now. Show us what makes you so qualified to be a Magic Knight.
Welcome to the end of the story, and if you made it this far, you must be crazy as hell, bro. I would never do this. I don't like watching full stories. The irony, huh? This is just in case some of you wanted to want me do this at some point, because a lot of waterproofs do it. I figured you guys might want to experience me doing it. Tell me what you thought about it. And the next time I do it, it'll definitely be better because the audios were all messed up. It was from my old stuff, I had a lot of audio problems to deal with, but if I ever make a full story with my current what ifs that I'm building up, and I will, then I'll do it better. I hope you guys enjoyed, and wait for the special. I really hope you guys enjoy. If you didn't, tell me down below, because I want to keep doing this, because some people don't want to just watch the playlist or wait for me to post. Not that you wouldn't get a full story anyway, because I wouldn't. The point is, I really hope you guys like this. All right, I'm gonna go work on the special. Peace.
Stay